Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another live stream here on Farid Response. I am joined by or with Wissam al-Mahdi, and we today want to learn about Jesus alayhi salam from our Christian brethren, our Christian friends, our Christian audience. Why not, Ya Wissam? Because I keep on learning, for some reason, unfortunately, I keep learning about Christianity from Muslims. That's not the way to go. I'm supposed to learn it from the people that believe in it. How about that? Sounds good. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, that's something that I should work on too. I mean, so many Muslim authors back here that I've learned from.
Give me a few examples.
So there's a Sheikh Helmet Kester. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Go on.
Of course, the erudite Imam of Oxford, Sheikh Christopher Tuckett himself.
Yeah.
A few books by him. So I think it's about time we kind of like broaden our horizons. And
yeah, you have the Imam Daniel Wallace or something
Imam
like that.
Daniel
He's one of the main ones, mashallah.
Yeah, he's too liberal for me. He's too liberal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not even good with the Muslim stuff. I don't even know the Muslims that teach Christianity. That's why I need to learn it from the Christians, and that's why we have this stream.
No lie, there are some Muslims that will put some Christian textual critics to shame. I think, inshallah ta'ala, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm trying to get either Sami Amiri or Ahmed al-Shami to do like some lecture on that. But they're very, very learned. Know multiple languages. Pretty much have absorbed every book on the subject. May Allah preserve them.
Ameen. So, since we're here, and we're here to learn. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick this StreamYard link up in the chat so that those that want to join can educate us. What do you think?
Yeah, the earlier the better, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
I'm hungry for knowledge.
Hey, Ameen.
We're not being pretentious, so we do want to exchange ideas. Maybe we are wrong on certain things. It's never, no matter how much you've read, it's always good to hear from the perspective of somebody who's in that theology, you know?
No doubt. And if there are points that make sense, and if there are points that are logical, and that we're clearly wrong on, why not? Why not accept that we're wrong?
Yep.
So,
yep. The truth is the objective. Yeah.
And what the thing is, people assume sometimes that when we do this stuff, I'm personally not are you a Hashimi by any chance?
I wouldn't know.
Okay. So yeah,
my lineage goes back to Fir'aun.
Oh, mashallah. قصدي أعوذ بالله.
You know, my cousin literally sat me down. He's like, okay, this is my family tree. He named all the names. Like, yeah, you go back to Fir'aun. I'm like, didn't he not have kids? Like, I thought he was barren, and that's why he was so happy with Musa.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Let me stick this up. Give me a sec, so that we can get some folks on here, inshallah. What the heck? Yeah. After all, sorry. Autocorrect just keeps messing up my the link.
Yeah.
Okay. I figured it out. It's the first time I'm using autocorrect, and it's always a mess.
It's necessary sometimes. I've tried once or twice to kind of like defeat it just to see how much easier typing would be, but it is necessary sometimes.
Right.
It still doesn't know me after like 8 years though. It fills in the wrong words sometimes.
It's supposed to know, right?
Yep. I spell my Allah with 2 A's and it still never does it.
Okay. Okay, so here's the link. And let me pin this thing. I'm trying to pin this thing. Okay, here you go. Pinned. Okay. And folks, for those of you that are just getting here, Jake has, may Allah support him and heal him. He's just been diagnosed by MS, multiple sclerosis, and he's got a short video about it on his channel. If you folks have the ability to, please donate to him. He's put a link up to cover some of his medical costs. You guys know medical costs in the States, quite expensive. And the least you can do is dua, share that link, let people be aware of it. And Jake, mashallah alayh, he's been one of the most active du'at in recent times, without a doubt. And it puts me and most of the folks to shame. If there's anyone that you can support, please support him. Yeah. So here's a link, or here's a link by Assassin. This is GoFundMe page.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna leave this up for a while. Yeah.
From what I know, like MS is one of those conditions that if you monitor it and you kind of like treat it well from the very beginning, you can have like a good life expectancy with relative good quality of life. So yeah, if it's very, very crucial that somebody has like the right resources in order to treat it because if it gets to a point where it becomes severe or uncontrolled, then it can really damage a person's life and lead to some, very bad complications.
Right. Allah musta'an. He was, subhanAllah, he was with me, man. He was with me in New Jersey, and never brought it up once. We spent hours together. I spoke about so many things, but never brought it up once about his pain or about the numbness. He was just like worried that there was something wrong, and he only was able to diagnose it or get diagnosed after I left. It's just so strange. Yeah, may Allah support him, man.
Yeah. Everybody's fighting a battle secretly, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
Whether health-wise or mentally, filially, or whatever. So always got to be considerate of people. أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيه.
Ameen. So I've put up now. Here's something weird, because I've put up the link, and for some reason, even though the link is there, I don't see anyone down in the background, which is strange. Makes me feel like there's something wrong with the link. I don't know.
In the back, you mean in the back chat?
Yeah, usually this place would fill up with a few people.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, you're right. It's empty.
Very strange. Even the Muslims are afraid of joining.
No, it's usually that is weird. Is it closed or something?
It shouldn't be closed. Should be available. Give me a sec. Just testing it with my phone. Yeah, seems like it's fine. Okay. So folks have started popping into the stream. But I don't know if these are Muslims. I got a feeling that they are. It's the usual.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
There's not too many non-Muslims left, man.
I don't know, bro. I don't know what's going on. But let's give me a sec. Okay, there's supposed to be a private. Oh, well, give me a sec. Is this who I think it is?
That
Can you hear me?
Picture looks like an error.
We can hear you, Rafi' Tester.
Yeah.
Habibi Rafi', thank you, bro, for at least testing this. Hello? You still here?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I can hear. I was just muting the other tab. I was actually getting some work done. I saw you live on my phone, so I said, let me see if I could join.
Jazakallah khairan for testing, for helping us test this out.
You're most welcome.
Your mic, by the way, is amazing. Like your sound quality is crystal clear.
You wouldn't believe this is the work mic that I've received from my current workplace, and I was even using it the previous workplace, and it eliminates background noise like crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, much better performance than gaming headphones and stuff that people use. Yeah, Platronics is the brand, if you guys are interested.
What is it?
Platronics is the name of the brand.
Put it. Can you type it in the chat?
Can I? Where does that go? Oh, okay. I have to do that from my phone because I'm not signed in on my computer. So how are you guys? How long is this stream been?
By the way, I forget someone I know from real life.
Oh, like in the area?
Yeah. He lives at the far end of the country, so 20 minutes away.
Habibi, you live at the far end.
You live at the far end. I live at the beginning of the country, bro. What you talking about?
Your friendship ends here, just on that. You're gonna have a big dispute.
So we have a couple of folks in the back. We got Avatar and we got Zachary. Folks, if you guys don't mind, please turn on the cameras just for a second, for me to make sure you folks are real people. And one of them just bounced. Oh, hey there. Hey, okay. Hey, Avatar. How you doing? All right. You want me to bring you on, Avatar? We have a. I'm assuming.
Bro.
Yes.
Take care.
Habibi,
Guys,
take
go ahead.
care, bro.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, okay. Just adding in Avatar. Hey, Avatar, how you doing, bro?
Zach said he doesn't have a camera on his device, by the way.
Hey.
Hello.
What's up?
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Good. Farid, actually, I come to here. Okay, I'm a non-Muslim.
Okay.
I want to ask. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Avatar. Are you a Christian?
No.
Okay, well, Avatar, it's a stream for Christians. We're trying to learn about Jesus, my friend.
Oh. Okay. I will come next time. Okay. Thank you, Farid.
All right. Take care, bro.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Wissam, bro, you need to tell me a thing or two about Jesus, Yahi, because these guys are taking too long to come on stream.
What if I mislead you? I'm just gonna be like.
That's a chance I'm prepared to take.
Well, see, anything I say you might consider as like something impeding our chances of getting Christians up here. But
really,
he was a great man. A lot of people have different opinions on him, what he taught, and his identity.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that we get to the bottom of it, based on history, based on what we have left of antiquity that we can look at, based on what we can like rationally arrive to. And but if I say anything else, like, I don't know. I'd rather get the conversation started when somebody comes up here.
I feel you, bro.
Yeah.
I understand.
It's very hard to tell anything about him given what we have at our disposal.
I would recommend keeping it simple because that's the way to have folks join. It's by mentioning something that they might not be extremely happy with.
Okay, yeah. So I think the only historical document that can give us any perspective on who Isa alayhi salam was is the Quran. Everything else has undergone too many layers of editing, too late of attestation, and so while the Quran is lately attested, it has different qualifications, being something verifiably divine and revelatory. And so I always tell Christians that we're kind of in the same boat. We have to arrive somehow at what Jesus said and who he was and what he preached. They rely on fallible human means. So manuscript studies, epigraphy, patristics, all of these things can be demonstrated to be, very, very unreliable, just due to how often they're corrupted, the differences between them. And
we got a guest, by the way.
Sweet. Okay, I'll stop.
All right. Do you want to say too much?
Yeah.
I know you're a one-trick pony, Yahi, so we don't want to waste everything and like.
I got one breathing technique. That's it.
Hey, Zachary, how you doing, bro?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I had a question.
Okay. Zachary, are you a Muslim, by the way?
Yes. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, Zachary, we're trying to learn about Jesus, Yahi.
Yeah, I just had like a question, like what your strongest argument against Christianity is.
Okay, we'll save it for them, inshallah. Save it for them when they get here, inshallah. But thanks for joining.
All right.
Take care of yourself.
We have a Muslim Hashira in the chat.
Yeah, we got a Umar Muslim and we got Muslim Hashira. What's this? What's Muslim breathing third form da'wah?
Bro, I'm wearing Zenitsu colors too, so just for you, yeah, Hashira.
What?
Don't worry, you're not a weeb.
Go on, bro. Go on. So you're saying that the only historical not attestation, but the best source for historical information about Isa alayhi salam is the Quran itself.
Yeah.
How does that make any sense, Ya Osam?
Yeah, like I said,
It's 600 years late, bro. It's 600 years late. Yeah.
I know. Well, there's a lot of caveats to that too. 600 years, absolutely, from the birth of Isa alayhi salam, but in terms of how much after it came from like some of the first attested passages of the New Testament that we have in manuscripts, it's only a couple hundred. So Sinaiticus, if you date it to the 5th century, would only be separated by 170 years from the Prophet ﷺ's birth. So it's not that wide of a gap. But as why I say that is everything with regards to Christian history in the 1st century, because after you get to 2nd and 3rd, we're all pretty much in the same boat. Whether something is 5th century or 4th or 3rd, you're still so far away that it just becomes, problematic to adduce truth from a 1st century figure from documents that came later. And so the New Testament is made by human beings. They sift through these old manuscripts, most of them from the 3rd century onwards, if not all of them from the 3rd century. And then all of them have differences regarding the basically everything you can imagine about Isa alayhi salam's life, and they only go back to a certain point, which is the middle of the 2nd to late 2nd century. And so that is a very big probabilistic chasm that you have to traverse in order to trust it first. Then if you want to look at Christian history, like actual patristics and what the early church fathers said about the New Testament about Isa alayhi salam, those begin even later. Those manuscripts are almost all medieval. They're filled with changes and corruptions, and they have counter narratives that are just as valuable, that say something completely different, but haven't been preserved as well, which is not
Can you give me an example? Can you give us an example, please?
Sure. So let's say the tradition that so something very important is where these gospels go back to, correct? Whether they are by these eponymous authors, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or whether they're not. So there are always in the whenever you have a heresiologist, because those are our first witnesses for these texts, describing the history of the New Testament, you have a counter narrative that they're trying to rebut. But the problem
a heresiologist is someone that lists out different ideologies that fall under the Christian umbrella, right?
Yeah, and tries to attack them or to demonstrate how it's not orthodox. So somebody like Imam Ahmed, even though he was more than a heresiologist, somebody who did Ar-Radd ala al-Jahmiyya or something like that. So Irenaeus, Tertullian, most of their works are countering their opponents. They're not doing big treatises on theology in general. Right. And so let's take one person, John. The first time we hear about John being a disciple that wrote a gospel is 185. So this is by a church father named Theophilus of Antioch, and he quotes John 1:1, the very famous prologue. Although the manuscripts for Theophilus are very late and very problematic, but assuming that they are who it says they were written by, that's the first quotation of anybody saying the word John. Can you imagine? 185 years after Isa alayhi salam, or if John wrote it 70 to 90, evangelicals will say earlier, Catholics will say 90 because that's when Eusebius says it was written. So 100 years after that. Although we have so many documents in that intermediary period that had chances to cite John as a text. So 185. And then so he's an apostle. He had apostles, and he wrote that gospel. There's a counter narrative by these churches in Asia. They're called the Alogi. And even bishops like Gaius of Rome. We have a lot of fragments that say he was He was like one of either the head of that movement, theologi, or somebody independent who had the same views. But theologi, they disputed that John was written by John. They disputed that a revelation was written by Revelation. And a 4th century church father, Epiphanius of Salamis, and other than him, Hippolytus as well, Hippolytus of Rome, they preserve some of the arguments that they used. And it is very convincing, like super convincing. They actually engaged in literary criticism. Like they took the synoptic gospels and then they compared them. They said this is contradictory to this. The Lord was crucified on that day, not on that day. How is it possible that all of these unique sayings are attributed to Jesus so much later when all of our previous gospels know nothing of the nature? You know, John is like very, very high Christologically. So the same more or less reasons that have formed this consensus of Christian scholars that John is unreliable when it comes to the identity of Isa alayhi salam, because a lot of the sayings are embellished. They seem to be embellished as opposed to the previous, the earlier texts they used as well. So we have that, and they said that it was a heretic named Cerinthus who composed it, a Gnostic. His name is Cerinthus, who Irenaeus of Lyon's another heresiologist, who says was one of the enemies of Paul and Peter. So you have,
but it's not Irenaeus who made the claim that John wrote it, right?
No, it's somebody contemporaneous with Irenaeus.
Okay, who was?
His name was Theophilus of Antioch. Now, he didn't say that John wrote the entire gospel. He doesn't give us any attestation for the rest of John's gospel, but he said, while speaking about the Logos, he says, as the apostle of the Lord, John said, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So he gives
I meant you said that the Gospel of John was written by someone else according to another church father?
Yeah, his name is Gaius. Not just him, but like a bunch of churches in Asia called the Asiatic Church, like with bishops and deacons, they made this claim.
Right. Gaius would be when?
190. So same as Irenaeus. Same as Irenaeus. Very, very early, yeah.
So we got a 2nd century church father who denies that John wrote John.
Mm-hmm. No, and even previous to that, we have. So the first time we hear the name Luke is from Irenaeus of Lyons. There's nobody like Ignatius, Polycarp, Diognetus, Hermas, Barnabas, Papias himself, who gives us those fragments. Who else? Like the Didache, or any of these, like even some of the heretics, like Ptolemy and Heraclian and all Valentinus and Saturninus. They never mentioned the word Luke at all. And he made 2 of the works in the New Testament, the Book of Acts, supposedly, and the Gospel. But we have people earlier than him, like earlier than Irenaeus, like Marcion of Sinope. Marcion, they'll consider him now the arch heretic because of some of the views that he held. But his movement was probably the biggest movement in Christian history. He had the most churches, he had the most followers. He is credited by people like Marcus Vincent and Jason Badun and so many other great scholars of making the first New Testament, like actually making the blueprint for what Christians consider the New Testament. So that's like his Antitheses, which is like a prologue to his text. So that would be like maybe something similar to like a conglomerate of the Catholic epistles. And then you have his Evangelion, a gospel, followed by the letters of Paul. There's a lot of reasons to assume that Marcion's gospel actually came before Luke, his Evangelion, and it was used before. So yeah, while he vehemently rejected any other authorship for the Evangelion other than the Lord himself, because he thinks he got it through Paul. The gospel was given by Jesus through Paul to him. So he denied. There's a dispute about whether he knew the 4 gospels or that there were 4. I don't think so. But so everyone who followed him, so these are people like Apelles, people like Serdo and others, they rejected all these other gospels except his. And then Irenaeus actually lists a whole bunch of groups of early Christians who only accepted one gospel.
Sam, we got a guest, Yafi.
Let's do it. Inshallah, can't believe I'm saying inshallah, it's a Christian.
Welcome on board, Karim. How you doing, bro?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can. What's up?
Yeah, so I've been a Christian on the fence for a while now, and I had a few questions when it comes to the disciple question in Islam. So I've been researching a couple of...
his audio is like going in and
Yeah,
out.
I think your audio keeps getting worse. It was better a few seconds ago.
It sounds like you're outside or you're running or something.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
A
it's
little better.
much better.
A little better.
All right, so yeah, I wanted to discuss the disciple question in Islam. I've been researching some tafsir here and there about Ahl al-Qarya, right, or the people of the village in Surah Yasin. And I've seen some mufassirin among the Salaf agreed that it is talking about Antioch, right? And this refers back to the question that I wanted to ask regarding the view of Islam on the disciples. Because when we look at the earliest sources for Christianity, we don't see any Tawheed-esque theology among the disciples or attributed to the disciples. So I was wondering, how would you explain this discrepancy in researching how early Christians thought and how the early Christian church operated, right? And distinguishing themselves from the other theologies circulating at the time. That was my question.
So your first question was about the tafsir of Surah Yasin. وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ.
Yes, جاءها المرسلون, right?
Yeah. So as far as I know, and Farid can confirm or deny this, there's nothing authentic like that actually in which.
Yeah, nothing to the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Yeah, nothing marfu'. So be mawquf at like a sahabi or a tabi'i, and some of them have problems in the isnad, but there's nothing authentic that we would accept as like some authority, right?
Unless you have something, Karim. Unless you have something that we're not aware of, but I
Yeah,
haven't.
okay. So yeah, I think this refers back to Hujjiyat al-Sahaba, right? In your creed, do you believe that a Sahabi is more accurate, has a more accurate representation of what the Quran intends when it discusses its narratives?
It's possible that the Sahabi is taking something from Ahl Kitab, though. So that's always something that we're open to. I mean, especially like because you're saying that this is something that has to do with the disciples of Jesus. And if a Sahabi is quoting something about the disciples of Jesus, it's possible that he may have gotten it from a Christian.
Yeah, that's valid. However, when it comes to these verses in particular, right?
Your voice keeps dropping.
Can you hear me now?
It's really low, Akhi.
Still muffled.
Okay, wait. Give me a sec.
It's a bit better now.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I was gonna ask. Yeah, what you said is valid about the Sahaba perhaps taking sources from Ahl al-Kitab and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
They were allowed to narrate Israeliyat after all.
Yeah.
However, then my question just becomes about how Muslims deal with the early Christian sources in which Tawheed theology is not found within those sources.
That's a problem. Okay. I mean, I'll get to that inshallah ta'ala, but you're saying this is a problem for us that there's no Tawheed in your early sources. Like, is that a good thing? Like monotheism?
I'm not just referring to that in general. I'm referring to ascriptions to the apostles, because when we look at what was ascribed to the apostles, right, in the earliest Christian sources from the 1st and 2nd centuries and whatnot, right?
I can't hear you, brother. I'm sorry.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Are you outside? Can you
yeah,
like?
I am outside. I do my regular jog here and then. So.
Yeah, can you like stop jogging?
All right. Is it better now, or is it still windy?
It's windy, but the audio's better.
Okay. So, yeah, my question is, as I said, right? Why don't we find any early Christian sources, right, where we see like remains of Tawheed, or of what you call what is it? Things ascribed to the apostles, disputing about Tawheed, and battling these other theologies that crept in the early Christian church. Is my question. Why don't we find that?
It depends on. You mean by like Tawheed, like a codified form of Tawheed, like Asma wa Sifat and all this stuff?
What Jesus taught to the apostles, essentially.
Yeah, what Jesus. So there's many ways to tackle this issue. One is that we have nothing from the 1st century, not even for what you believe. This is one of the problems that historians deal with when it comes to ancient Christian sources. Everything we have comes from the 2nd century, just internally, just like from like little fragments that we find in later writers. There's nothing that we can actually pinpoint from an apostle in the 1st century unless you can show me. So that's that problem is one of preservation, is one of just how badly Christian scribes and theologians have actually altered the text and did a bad job of preserving them, because like some of the most important documents for you guys, like, are you aware of Papias of Hierapolis?
Yes.
Papias of Hierapolis wrote how many books? And he was supposed to be a hearer of either the elder John or the Apostle John, depending on who you believe, Eusebius or Irenaeus. He wrote 5 books, right? 5 volumes. The Kyrikon Logion Exegesis, the exegesis of the oracles of the Lord.
Mhm.
None of it remains. None of it remains. It's all lost to history. All we have are 8 fragments, and they're all very late. All very late, and they comprise maybe like half a page. You can read them all on New Advent in 5 minutes. Okay, and he's one of like the most famous links to an apostle. Okay, for let's say who else? Like Dionysius of Corinth in the 160s. He wrote 7 letters. He wrote 7 epistles. We only have 1 fragment preserved by Eusebius. Nothing else. A letter between him and Pintius. That's it. For Hegesippus of Rome, he wrote another 5 books. And he's one of the chief chroniclers and historians of what happened in Jerusalem. We have nothing from him. Polycarp, the famous disciple of supposedly famous disciple of John and the teacher of Irenaeus, we have one epistle that comes in different recensions. And
So
yeah.
May I just add? I'd like to add something onto that. Like even in Islam, even under the umbrella of Islam, there were many Shi'i sects. However, none of the writings of the other early Shi'i sects survived if those specific sects themselves died. So, like the only thing from all these, like all the imams had people that ascribed themselves to them, and whenever you had differences of opinions on who the imams were, you had new sects coming out of that. One of the biggest sects at the time was called the Waqifi sect. We don't have a single Waqifi book. Like the whole sect has disappeared.
Yeah.
We only have like one text that's preserved through a refutation. That's all we have. And it used to be a large sect.
Yeah, and by the way, all of these, are exactly everything that we know about the other side is preserved by heresiologists and refutators.
Right.
So just to wrap that up, like I told you, and by the way, that the concept that Tawheed, I don't know what you mean by Tawheed, but like the belief in one God, that Isa alayhi salam was a prophet, and that he performed miracles by the grace of God, etc., etc. That's still found in what you have of the New Testament. Of course, you have to apply rigorous methodological historical scrutiny to get away from all of the developments, and you have to, of course, textual criticism. But it's still found in your canonical New Testament, and it's still found within many early sects. Like, are you aware of like monarchians or dynamic monarchians?
Yeah. I was gonna comment on something you said, but it went a little bit longer. However, I'll say it right now, right? In, for example, Surah Al-Ma'idah, it says, فَأَيَّدْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا عَلَى عَدُوِّهِمْ فَأَصْبَحُوا ظَاهِرِينَ, right? In the context of speaking of the disciples. So how would a Muslim interpret this verse regarding the disciples, right? Because the widespread Christian theology is Trinitarian, obviously, right? Or obviously not something that Jesus would have taught to the disciples according to the Islamic paradigm. So my question here becomes, how would you interpret this in light of what we know from historical evidence, right, of what the disciples believed and what the early Christian milieu believed in general? That's my question.
Remind me of the verse, please.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا أنصار الله كما قال عيسى بن مريم للحواريين من أنصار إلى الله قال الحواريين نحن أنصار الله فآمنت طائفة من بني إسرائيل وكفرت طائفة فأيدنا الذين آمنوا على عدوهم فأصبحوا ظاهرين. Right? So this is the verse.
Are you looking up like the tafsir?
I'm actually looking up the verse.
Mm-hmm.
1 sec. من أنصار إلى الله. Okay, and then sorry, Karim, if you don't mind, just one more time.
Yeah.
Since you said Surah Al-Ma'idah, right? Oh, Surah Al-Ma'idah.
Surah Al-Ma'idah, yes.
My bad. Okay. Number 72. Or no, sorry, not number 72. Which verse again, bro?
Oh yeah, let me pull it up for you.
One second.
Okay, give me a sec.
Whoa.
So, give me a sec. Yeah, it's give me a sec. Asaf, verse 14, actually.
Oh, you're way off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's verse 14.
Because I got confused by the other verse, because like there was a similar verse in Al-Ma'idah, right? Where it mentions the Hawarin. I think Farid got confused with me too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't believe that it's referring to that specific generation necessarily.
Well, it's in the context of speaking of Ansarullah, the Hawariyin, right?
It wouldn't matter.
فأما الطائفة من بني إسرائيل وكفر الطائفة فإن الذين آمنوا على عدوهم فأصبحوا ظاهرين.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that this is referring to just the general victory of Christians over
Jews.
the Yahud. Yeah, that's my assumption from the text.
Well, it says فَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, right? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا are the believers, not the kuffar who believed in the Trinity, right?
Those who believed in Isa alayhi salam. Now you've kind of forgot about the context.
So you're saying this is
So Jews typically, the ones who remain Jews, did not believe in Isa alayhi salam.
So you're saying this is referring to Christ's ministry instead of like the generation that came after Christ?
No, I'm saying it could be the generation after him. It's saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala somehow assisted the disciples and their followers of being victorious at that time over the Jews, which is very plausible. If you look at like the Hadrianic age, the Jews were completely destroyed. They were removed from do you know about like the Bar Kokhba wars and the Jewish revolts?
Yeah, but the impression I'm getting from the verse is that it's referring to the disciples, obviously, right? And the disciples, their theology, if we assume that their theology matches the Islamic theology, right? It is not the dominant theology.
Yeah, but you're talking now. The verse doesn't say that, and it remained that way forever. It's not. It's just saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately, there was some kind of schism, فَآمَنَ الطَّائِفَةِ. And of course, that would mean kafarat ta'ifa. There was a schism, which obviously is the case. You read any book on early Christian history, it's called the parting of the ways. If you want, there's a good article by Jeremiah Coogan called "The Ways That Parted" in the library. And of course, there's scholars who specialize in that, like James Tabor, Robert Eisenman, Adolf von Harnack, about how Christianity and Judaism split and how, I guess, the earth was cultivated for the growing of Trinitarian Christianity. Much later, of course, but all the ayah is saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aided the disciples, or maybe this, it seems to be like in an immediate context, the disciples or maybe their followers over the Jews, and that's something very foreseeable.
I don't think it's problematic if it's referring to the disciples at during Jesus' ministry. Right?
It would be problematic if you can demonstrate that that this was their theology. But it's impossible. Everything is lost. All you have are later documents and filled with embellishments. And this is not
Karim,
just.
if you don't mind, Karim, if you don't mind, you mentioned to me a little while ago that this is in the private chat that you're on the fence. Would you mind going further into detail about that? Perhaps we can help you out.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been studying Christian theology and Islam for a while. Right? I've been going through different tafsir and different academic articles and scholars, right? And when it comes to Christianity, I'm convinced that the earliest theology that we find isn't Trinitarian. I'm convinced that it's more of like some sort of binary.
Can you repeat?
Yeah, your voice is a bit far away.
Can you hear me now?
Same thing.
Still low.
Okay, give me a sec. Just a little bit. What about now? Is it better?
We'll try our best, but it's the same.
Yeah. I'll turn off my air conditioning. That's probably getting in the way. But yeah, go ahead.
No, it has nothing. Bro, you're going to start sweating by that for no reason.
Okay. Okay. So, Yeah, when I said I'm on the fence, what I mean is that I've been studying Islamic Christianity for a while, right? And I'm convinced that the Christianity taught today isn't the Christianity of the earliest Christian sources. I think the early Christians believed more in a binitarian theology, more of like a two powers in heaven sort of thing, right? Are you aware of the two powers of heaven theology?
Yes, I am, but Christians did not believe that.
Yeah, obviously, right? But I'm talking about what the earliest sources get to us.
So two powers. If you want to relate that to like a Christian context, that would be like logos theology. That would be like
Yeah,
the Father and His logos. Yeah, that's what two powers basically is. It's Yahweh
Yeah.
and the Memra, whereas Christians adopted it as, or they didn't adopt it. It was a prevalent Greek philosophic concept, but that's what it would be. But no, that's not the earliest Christians. That's the earliest Greek Christians. Not the earliest Christians, because the earliest Christians were not Greeks. They had no idea about philosophy.
yeah.
Like, do you anticipate like a shepherd or a tradesman or a merchant in Galilee talking about the nous and the logos and the sperma to orano and like they don't know any of this stuff. They just knew
Yeah, not at all. Obviously
scripture.
not.
Yeah, but that's where Binitarian comes from. It comes from Greek philosophy. It comes from, that's why, again, Ash'ari is always catching strays. But like Ash'aris and Shia, they believe this as well. They believe that God is he's unrelatable, that he's so far beyond us that we can't even ascribe things like existence.
Yeah,
No.
it's tanzih to the point of him being unknowable. Yes.
Exactly. And so that's why they think there's another power, a lesser power. The people who believed in the Memra, they believed that it was an emanation of God that is subservient to God, and it's called the created glory. The created glory. This is how they referred to it. And the early Christian apologists, they believe that about Isa alayhi salam as well. They referenced him to the passage in Proverbs and in Sirach 24, where it says, "My Creator formed me in the beginning of he formed me. He created me as the beginning of His works. My Creator said to me, etc., etc." This is how they referred to Jesus, and Jesus was the one, that conduit who like created the rest of the world. But that's not, early Christians did not believe that. That's Christians who learned about Isa alayhi salam and had that philosophy, so they just plugged Isa alayhi salam in the place of the Word, and he became that divine agent.
Yeah, even when reading the Bible, right? Sometimes I know the Islamic concept of Jesus being the Word, right? He is created through the Word of Allah, right? He's not a part of the divine essence or anything, right? That's how the verses are understood, right? In the beginning of Gospel of John, obviously, the famous verse, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was a God, and the Word was..." You know this verse, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so even like the first time I read it, I'd say that I've understood it in the Islamic sense. Like, okay, so in the beginning was the Word, right? The Word was with God. God spoke it, and then He created Jesus, right?
There's no way to understand it in an Islamic context.
I know. That was a misreading from my part. But like, even intuitively, I did not believe in like logos theology, right? Or a theology in which Jesus is sharing in the divine essence. That's very counterintuitive to me personally, right? But even at the same time, like when reading the early Christian sources, I find it very hard to reconcile the Islamic narrative with what we find historically, right? I know you would say, like, a theological argument would say, like, there's corruption, there's a lack of preservation, misattributions to disciples, and so on and so forth, right? But I find that a lack of such a thing like having the spotlight where it opposes all these other creeds, it's a little bit concerning, historically speaking, because if you ask any biblical historical scholar, they wouldn't say that the disciples' vision of Christ, right, or how they understood theology was.
Now it's hard to hear you, Allah. Especially you're beginning to speak a little bit faster, and I can't pick up everything.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyways, I'm gonna go now because I have something.
No, you're in the middle of asking something very important, though. Can you finish?
Yeah. I just got caught up on something. I can ask and then leave in a second because I have to do something. All right. Okay. So
talks. The name of the stream is "Teach Us About Jesus," bro. I didn't learn a thing. You're the only Christian that has been on here so far, and so far it's been questions about the disciples.
They're probably asleep, Farid. To be honest, they're probably asleep. They're not going to teach you about
your knowledgeable.
No, you're here, bro. You're here.
Okay, yeah, but I have to go too. So like the time is over. So.
Listen, Kareem. If I end up in hell, it's because of you.
Yeah. I'll take
right?
it. Don't worry. I'll take it.
Don't help him out. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Take care, Karim.
Oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
I
But
think
we do have XB. How you doing, XB?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. How you been?
I'm all good, thank you. How have you been?
I'm doing all right, bro.
Okay, so I saw. I honestly not very familiar with your work. I saw the stream on YouTube, so I decided to join, and I see that you're having a conversation about Jesus Christ. So I thought I'd give my opinion on the matter.
Please do. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, I just want to make a big disclaimer that I am not in any way a theologian or a scholar. I'm an electronics engineer. This is not my field at all. And
Right.
so I would just say, I will express what I know within the limits of my knowledge on the topic.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds great, bro.
So
And don't feel any pressure. I mean, we're learning casually here.
okay, that's great. So about Jesus Christ, obviously, we as Christians believe that Jesus is the incarnation of God in human flesh. Now, I thought about this from various points of views. Of course, from theological point of view, there's I heard the gentleman before me was even mentioned the two powers in heaven theology. That I think it was there was a book published by a Jewish scholar called Benjamin
Summer.
Yeah, exactly. And he mentions this theology because in the Old Testament you see that there's the presence of this called angel of the Lord, which various times has spoken in a way that resembles the way that God talks, and even he is mentioned by Jacob as the God of Bethel, the God of I think Bethel, yeah. Basically where he saw God in his vision and he built an altar. He referenced that the angel of the Lord. He claimed that the angel of the Lord is that God that has spoken to him. So we believe that this is the second person of the Holy Trinity. That he is that Jesus Christ is the incarnation in human form of God. And from a philosophical point of view, also I would like to go into this really quickly because I think it's necessary. Like it has to be God Himself that takes the punishment away from humans, takes sin away from human beings, because He is the only one. He is the only one. He is the only one that lives up to the moral standard of God. So only God can. So only God is morally perfect. It has to be someone morally perfect to live up to the moral standard of God. So therefore, it has to be God Himself. No angel and a human being meets the criteria. And I think this is also why it's necessary for the sacrifice to be made by God Himself.
Not by God, but like of God, right?
Yeah, I mean,
God has to be sacrificed.
In Christian theology, God is a Trinity, so it's one being, three persons.
Yeah, one of those persons who was fully God.
Exactly, the Son
died, got killed.
Exactly, the Son fulfilled the law and prophets, as Jesus said.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I can read from one of the scholars who actually are proponents of this idea of binitarianism, and a lot of Christians, like the last person, they really haven't read those. Have you read Summers' book?
I have not. No.
You have not. Okay, so that's the problem. A lot of people think that they are saying that it was like an absolute one-for-one precursor to Christian binitarianism or like high Christology. It's not that. Okay, so I'm just going to read. I'm going to read to you.
Yeah, I don't think it is, but it was just interesting because currently you see Jewish theology is very strict against the idea that there is two Yahwehs or something like that.
Not really. You have people like people who believe in like the Zohar. They believe in 1,000 emanations of God, literally 1,000, and that a person's job is to recognize them all. But just real quick, so this is when he talks about binitarianism. This is on page 124 of Borderlines, his book, Daniel Boyarin, and he's a proponent of this concept of binitarianism. He says, given such evidence, after laying everything out, he wants to now make like the jump from binitarianism to like Christian theology. So he says, given such evidence for Jewish binitarian prayer, the medieval interpretation of the late ancient prayer to the Lord of all and the creator of Bereshit as binitarian may be taken to be highly plausible, if not definitive. Okay, this is what you say. Okay, it could be said with hardly any exaggeration that the various attempts in medieval Jewish exegesis to explain these texts theologically could be mapped onto the varieties of late ancient Christian theologies, okay, from Marcellus of Ankara to Eunomius's, with an Orthodox Nicene version of Judaism there as well. Indeed, the theological problem of the ontological status of logos-like hypostases is precisely that of possible worship of divine beings other than God. He said what Christians knew what binitarianism was. They knew what logos theology was. But he said the problem for them was we're worshiping something that's ontologically distinct from God. It's not God. Okay? As Elliot Wolfson puts it, the initial theoretical problem of addressing prayer to an entity that is distinct from God, i.e., the created glory, is solved by blurring of the ontological difference between the creator and the image. And this is what Nicene Christians did by making them well, not Nicene, but later. But eventually when the Trinity was codified, now you have them ontologically the same. They're from the same essence. They have the same powers. You can pray to one as you can pray to the other. It developed that way. But initially, binitarianism was just, again, a philosophical, a Hellenistic philosophical principle that regardless of what theology you had, they were going to apply it. This was just their way of seeing reality. God cannot operate in the material world. So anything that they see, whether it's in the Hindu scriptures, which this exists in the Hindu scriptures. If you read Prajapati, they thought Brahma has a word, and that word is the thing that creates everything. Whether you are a Christian, what Muslims, supposed Muslims, like Ismailis and Shia, they believe this as well. It has nothing to do with scripture. It has something to do with an outline of your philosophy that you have to apply to any text. And this is what Adolf von Harnack says in History of Dogma. If you go into the section about logos theology, he says that critics of Christianity should not be misled into thinking that the apologists like Tatian, Justin Martyr, Athenagoras, that they adopted logos theology because of the Bible. Said don't ever make this mistake, because a lot of critics of Christianity will say that. They say, oh, logos theology is there, and so they abandon everything that they believed in. No, he says this was something that was already in there as a necessity for them philosophically, and they were going to believe in it regardless. And so they found a way to harmonize that with Christian scriptures. And so what you believe as Jesus being the Word, the medium through which the universe was created, that didn't come from a prophet. That didn't come from Moses. It didn't come from Jeremiah. It didn't come from God. This came from a certain view of the world that is open to criticism, of course, because human beings cannot, without revelation, tell you these grand things about God. What we know of when the prophets spoke about God in the clearest, most lucid of ways, they described his oneness. They did not intend for you to go and search through the scriptures like an equation. Well, here the Spirit is said of like this, and here this type phrase is applied to Jesus, and so therefore, voila. And any deviant can do that with any theology, and they do that. So you guys think that Jehovah's Witnesses are deviants, but they do use the same syllogisms. Jesus is the prototokos, paseis ktesun, the firstborn of creation, and they think Michael is the firstborn of creation, so Jesus is Michael.
Yeah, but I think Jehovah's Witnesses are, well, they're, I guess if you subscribe to some other doctrine other than what like, for example, what Christians say, then you are by definition not a Christian, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, but I'm telling you, like, this is all sects. They diverge. They're born from this type of reasoning, from this type of gathering sources in order to identify God. God is not like that. God will tell you who He is. If He's triune, He's going to tell you clearly. There's no need for Him to be coy and cause so much division and bloodshed and disagreement. You know, when at various, even, let's say, even the narrators of the Gospels, they could have put in a parenthesis, like, for example, when Jesus says it is not what goes outside of it is not what is emitted from the mouth that makes a person impure, but no, it's not what goes into the stomach that makes a person impure, but rather what's emitted from the heart. And then Mark says this, by saying this, Jesus prescribed all foods clean. So he gave you his tafsir. So at any point in time, John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, whoever wrote those texts, could have said, by saying this, Jesus has now demonstrated the Trinity, or made himself the second person in the triune Godhead. But Jesus doesn't say this even in the canonical texts. There's so many different misunderstandings of the text that Christians today still hold on to, because they have this preconceived notion of Jesus being God that shouldn't be interpreted that way. And there's no reason for it to be. Gnostics had texts that clearly say Jesus was part of the pleroma, like God's fullness. But this doesn't exist in Christian sources.
Yeah, I kind of want to go point by point. I think I am aware that also in the Islamic point of view, Jesus is also described as a spirit from God or a word from God. And my comment on the oneness of God is that the Trinity. So the Trinity is not saying that there's an ontological difference between these three persons. It's saying that the same being is those three persons.
Maybe your Trinity. There are Trinities that say that like by the logical conclusions of their description of the Trinity, they do say there's an ontological distinction, because Orthodox Trinitarianism, if I'm not mistaken, says that the Father is the only one who is ase, who is independent, and that the Son is derived from the essence of the Father.
Yeah, I don't ascribe to that point of view. I lean more towards the Protestant camp.
Protestants believe this as well. Protestants are Nicene Trinitarians.
Yeah, but when we say that, like when we describe the three persons, it's not an ontological difference. So it's the same being, it's the same essence. They don't have different thoughts.
Yeah, it's the same being and same essence. So, like, if I do you watch Dragon Ball Z?
I watched it when I was a kid. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna have to pick you off, Wissam. So
Why?
it was nice having you. It was nice.
I'm trying to think. Oh, or like Naruto or whatever. Okay.
Even worse. I'm sorry,
Wow.
guys. We're gonna have to end the stream here. Wissam just crossed the line. I'm sorry about that, folks. I did not expect this to happen. Good night. Sorry.
Oh my God.
I couldn't resist.
Well, bro, why are you trying to cover it up? I know you like anime. Chill.
Please carry on.
I'm gonna spill the tea. I'm gonna spill the coffee. But so in Dragon Ball Z, you have, and in like Naruto, you have characters who can make copies of themselves from their own essence. So like Cell, he has little baby cells, right? Those little blue ones that ravage through the Z fighters for some reason. Yeah, sorry, man. And then so they're from the same essence. They're from Cell's makeup, but they are ontologically distinct because one comes from the other. One is derived from the other. Okay, or like Naruto when he shadow clone jutsu. All the shadow clones are not Naruto, but they're derived from his chakra.
But okay. That's not the same, though. That's
it is
not
the same. The earliest, again, you've taken a concept and evolved it into where it's not the same. But the how can I, like, the conditions for the Trinity, or like the basis of the Trinity is that. So like the people who argued for it, or like proto versions of it, let's say Tatian the Syrian. He says that the Father and the Son are like one flame that lights another without diminishing from the flame at all. Okay, now you have two flames, both derived from one flame, same essence. But obviously one is greater. One is ontologically distinct because it caused the other. Okay, Theophilus of Antioch says that Jesus was swimming in the bowels of the Father, and then the Father emitted him, like shot him out of himself as his helper in the universe. It's not. This is Theophilus of Antioch. This is in the line of succession from Peter.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the simplest way to understand it would be. I mean, there's all the analogies, especially the analogies with water. That you say, okay, so there's three different states of matter. It's the same matter and that stuff. But of course, this is not a true representation, since that's modalism, and it's not really the case. So
you answered your own question. Yeah, there's no analogy to make them ontologically the same. There's no analogy.
There is no analogy to accurately describe the Trinity, and I think there shouldn't be, since it's simply saying how can we describe God by some other thing?
It's not a description. This is identifying God. A description would be like kayfiyah or modality. This is identifying God, who he is and who he isn't. Like, is Jesus God or is he not God? It's not, hey, yeah, we know he's God, but how do they operate? How do they create? What is the nature of everything? No. But the descriptions that we hear from Christians, it's not that we don't understand it or no, there is no other way to understand it other than three gods. Three gods that are derived from one God. Or if you look like if you're like a Thomasine or like Thomistic, then it's just this natural attribute of God to beget and to emit eternally, which I don't understand either. But in terms of, if you say, like, have you ever heard of the LPT?
LPT? No.
It's the logical problem of the Trinity.
Logical problem of the Trinity?
Yeah.
No, can you explain it to me real quick?
Okay, so the logical problem of the Trinity was something that was even discussed in like the Nicene period with Gregory of Nazianzus and previous to him. It's basically, how do you, while espousing monotheism, how do you maintain one God, given that you have let's say three persons, each individually God, and they're not each other. How is that still one God? So if I asked you, for example, is God triune?
Yes.
Okay. Is Jesus triune?
Jesus is God, so he is the Trinity. Like, he is one of the persons.
Yeah, but he's not triune. He's one. He's one person.
He is God, so therefore he is triune. But
No. When I say he's triune, is he made up of three persons, or does he include three persons?
No, you're confusing his essence. Again, this is the distinction. When we say he is the Son,
mm-hmm.
He is fully God.
Okay, so God is triune, correct?
Yes.
Is the Son triune? Does the Son exist in three persons?
That's kind of like asking, is ice? It's like kind of asking, is ice vapor? It's not.
No, it's not. Ice is not
water, and vapor is water.
Ice doesn't come in three forms. Ice is one form. Ice would be if I asked you, is ice three forms, you would say no, ice is solid, right?
Yes, but notice what I'm saying is it's still water. So water is ice, vapor.
I'm not asking you about water though. I'm not asking you about water. I'm saying
exactly. I'm pointing out.
One second. Just try to understand what I'm saying. If I asked you, is H2O triune or whatever, you would say yeah, it comes in water, vapor, and ice. Okay. You would say that. But if I said it's a logical question, so I said, okay, is ice triune? Does it come in three forms? You would say no, it's a solid only, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's plug that in. Is God triune?
Yes.
Okay, is Jesus triune? I've never had a person stumble with this question ever.
No, I'm saying he is not, but
he's not. Okay, so if the God is triune and Jesus is not triune, how can Jesus be God?
because it's, again, I'm pointing out the problem with that logic, with that thinking.
No, there was no problem. It might be a dumb question, but it's not a logically incoherent question, because we applied that to ice and you were able to answer it. Questions that you
yes,
can,
but
questions that you can answer are not.
what I'm saying is, I mean, you can even say, yes, since Jesus is God, Jesus is a Trinity in the sense he is one.
No one said that. No one said he's not the Trinity. He would be part of the Trinity, or be one of the Trinity. He's not triune.
Exactly, I'm pointing out that water comes in 3 different forms. But
yes. So it wouldn't be right to say that ice exists in 3 forms.
No, it's not. It's by definition. It's by definition the solid form of water.
Right, but I'm saying I think you get it. You're not trying to understand how the analogy applies to the Trinity.
Folks, to be honest, I started the stream hoping to learn about Jesus. We're on our 2nd guest, and XB, I'm afraid that like you're going to bounce in a bit without teaching us about Jesus. If you don't mind, at least something.
What else do you want to know about Jesus?
So for example, I'm curious. So you're someone who believes that Jesus is a deity, right? And is this based on those texts from the Old Testament, or is it based on something within the New Testament?
Based on both.
Is there anything that mentions Jesus in the Old Testament, like explicitly?
A lot of prophecies do, and for example, Daniel 7:13, which Jesus himself quotes about himself. Isaiah 53.
Wait. Let's deal with one. Can you quote Daniel chapter 7? This is a good demonstration, so you can learn, Farid. So the claim is Jesus is God, and Daniel 7 indicates either. Do you think it's explicit or implicit, XB? Explicit meaning you cannot read it another way. Meaning if a Jew reads Daniel 7 or a Muslim reads Daniel 7 and he doesn't equate it with Jesus, he's blind. Implicit means you can derive it with a level of interpretive.
It's implicit.
It's implicit. Okay. Now, can you quote it?
Wait, guys. I mean, I'm kind of let down here because XB said that he believes because of something in the Old Testament. Now he's saying it's implicit. I was hoping for something explicit. I mean, if you're going to believe that a person who's a man is a deity, I would assume that it's due to explicit evidence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that Daniel 7 is the only.
It was the first one you brought up, though.
Yeah, but
if you want
about Old Testament,
if you want to switch in New Testament, that's fine. I
want to show you like why.
Yeah, please.
He admitted that it's implicit, but it's not even implicit. Okay. So Daniel 7 is a vision about one like a son of man. So it doesn't even have the definite article. It doesn't say the son of man. It's just one like a son of man. In Aramaic, which half of Daniel is written in Aramaic, one like a son of man means somebody who resembles a human. It's a vision that Daniel saw. I saw somebody who looks like a man, and he approached the Ancient of Days.
Should we try to put it up here? Well, I mean, we can just read it.
1 second. I just have to make a phone call. I'll be right back.
No. Daniel 7, XB?
Daniel 7:13.
Daniel 7:13.
If you can put the entire chapter, because I think 14 also is relevant.
Daniel 7:14.
Daniel 7:13 to 14. Let's do that.
Okay.
I'll also put it up here.
Give me a sec.
My apologies. I just had to coordinate a ride for my son from school. My bad. So Daniel 7, it says, Daniel's seeing in a dream. He says, I saw one like a son of man who approaches the Ancient of Days. So there's already somebody else who's called God, and one who says he looks like a human being. Okay, right. In my vision, there was one like a son of man, exactly, coming in the clouds of heaven. It's a very beautiful dream. I guess he's coming. Okay, this is about the kingdom. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. So there's two things there. One is like the Son of Man, and one who's called the Ancient of Days. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language proskynesin, or in the Septuagint, worshipped him or venerated him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Okay, so this is the prophecy in Daniel 7. Later on in Daniel 7, Daniel gets confused. He says, "What is the meaning of this vision?" And the next section is the interpretation of the dream. So he says, "I, Daniel, was troubled in spirit. The visions that passed through my mind disturbed me." And so he asks the angel, what do all these mean? I wanted to know the meaning of this. I wanted to know the meaning of that. Then when you get to the meaning of the actual vision that he had about the Son of Man, it's interpreted right there. It says that the saints of the Most High were transfigured as this individual person. So it's the people of Israel. And they were given authority. And they were given an everlasting dominion, etc., etc. So it actually interprets the dream for you, telling you that it's not Jesus, that it's the saints.
Where does it say saints?
Just Control F and click saints, and just write saints. It'll be the one.
No. Maybe it's a different translation.
Maybe. What translation is it? NIV?
Yeah.
Keep going. I'll give you the exact verse. 1 second.
My personal understanding, and asked him the meaning of this. So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The four great beasts are four kings that will rise from the earth, but the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever.
Oh, yeah, 7:18, right there.
Oh, yeah, so the holy people.
Holy people, same thing, yeah.
Okay, so it's referring to a group of peoples.
Yep. They will receive the kingdom and possess it forever, yes, forever and ever. So it's telling you that...
It's not referring to a specific person.
No. It's a vision where the people are personified as one person, which is very common in the Old Testament. So not only is it implicit, but when the angel interprets it, it doesn't say Jesus. Oh, by the way, Daniel, this is the Son of God who's going to come in later times. It doesn't say that.
Yes, but Jesus...
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to kick you guys out. So I have a question. But like, So XB, how do we know that this is referring to Jesus? It's by Jesus saying that this is, so Jesus quoting it is evidence of it being about Jesus?
So I think Jesus claimed that he is the Son of Man about 70 times or something in the Gospels. Yeah. And when the high priests then confronted him about that, he said, they asked him, "Are you the Son of the Holy, Blessed One?" So etc. etc. He said, "I am," and so he quoted the book of Exodus.
It depends on which gospel you read, by the way. When I think it's in Mark, where they ask him, he says, "That's what you say that I am." It says "sou leges" in Greek. In the other gospel, Matthew and Luke, I believe, he says "I am."
Okay, so what I'm trying to understand is you believe that Jesus is a deity because he claimed. So assuming your interpretation is correct, I'm not, of course, leaning towards that. It does seem to be referring to a group of holy people, but assuming your interpretation was correct, it's due to Jesus's claim that it's about him, and that's sufficient for you to believe that he's a deity.
I mean, if someone dies and rises 3 days later.
Oh, that's different. That's different. So you're not doing it because of the claim.
It's you're putting together a string of information. You don't tackle everything on its own.
How do you identify God by a string, bro? Like there's no one verse that says that. Like there's no one verse that you can clearly, like this is salvation, XB. Wallahi, like. Please understand, like I know this is something that we take for granted as Muslims because we don't have this problem. God's identity is so clear in the Quran and Sunnah. But just the premise that you have to go hunting for different passages to identify this person is alone to tell you that it's not true.
It's not hunting. If someone says that he is who he is, and then this person,
who did he say he was in that passage? Did he say he's God?
when he said I am, that was enough for them to want to kill him, because I am is
Bro,
a direct quote from Exodus.
so now you're not relying on Jesus's words. You're relying on the interpretation of Jesus' words by his enemies.
No,
That's
it's
even
because-
worse.
Jesus was not. Jesus was a theologian. He understood exactly what that means when he says I am.
You don't have him telling you what he means. You just have the statements. But you're saying that they understood it in a certain way and they ripped their garments. Which, by the way, the concept of blasphemy is very broad. But you're saying because they understood it and they said, "Oh, look, is there any need for any more proof? You should go and unalive him." You're saying that because of their reaction, they understood it to be a divine claim. Therefore, you understand it to be a divine claim.
It's not. He quoted directly from Exodus, the I am, the
He
Moses.
did not quote from. Okay, so now it's another thing. So, but in terms
No,
of
it's not. Please stop doing this. I'm not saying a different thing. I'm talking about the same passage. You said, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds." So he.
Okay, but
he said,
we
"I
already
am."
showed you that in Daniel 7, it explicit. Okay, in Daniel 7, is it explicit about telling you that the one who's going to get the dominion and the kingdom is the holy people of God? It's explicit. It's in the text.
I mean, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not a theologian. I can't say for sure. That's
You don't have to be a theologian. Just read the verse. Verse
Actually,
18 is explicit.
does it say holy people or does it say one person? Is it plural or one person?
The theologians are the ones who's going to confuse you about the clarity of the text.
Come on, XB. Come on. It's
When you're saying Exodus, Jesus is saying I am, and he's referring to Exodus. That's a theological, interdependent, intertextual link that you've made. You're a theologian there. But when it comes to reading Daniel 7:18, you're not a theologian.
Well, okay, so let me understand this. How do you then say if you're talking about religion, obviously you're talking about theology. How do you then identify who God is? Trying to understand.
XB and Wissam, just give me a second here because I feel like it's very important to get through this specific one before carrying on. And where's the text? Okay. Looking at, excuse me, right here it says, the four great beasts are four kings that will rise from the earth, but the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom, right? And this is.
Can we maybe scroll up
Zoom in.
from the?
Okay.
No, before 13.
Much further up.
Yeah, I want to look at the.
All those have nothing to do with the actual prophecy. Those are all about like the different kingdoms, the beasts, and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so here's what I'm looking at. It says, let me zoom in for the sake of the audience as well. Hope that's better. Oof, that's huge. Like
It's huge,
okay.
huge, bigly.
So it says, in my vision, at night I looked, and there before me was like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the days. He approached the days?
He approached the Ancient of Days. I think you got us.
Okay, I can't.
You're not seeing the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, let me move back. Okay. Ancient of Days, and was led to his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. And then it carries on to say, the interpretation is, the four great beasts are four kings that will rise from the earth, but the holy people from the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever.
The four great beasts and the holy people is an interpretation of what came before that in 9 and 10.
Yes.
If you go to 9, verse 9 and 10.
Yeah.
So thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, the hair of his head was white like wool, and his throne was flaming with fire. And this is also a vision that was in the revelation of John about Jesus.
It's also about the angel as well in Daniel. Same thing. His eyes were like fire. His hair was
No,
like
he's in this case he's talking about the Ancient of Days.
I know, but are you saying the Ancient of Days is Jesus?
I'm saying that Jesus is later identified as the Ancient of Days in the vision
That's heresy. No one, bro. You just said he's the Son of Man who approached the Ancient of Days.
I am saying that later.
But is that a correct interpretation? Is it saying that Jesus is the Ancient of Days? So he's not only the one who approached the Ancient of Days, but he's the Ancient of Days himself?
In Daniel, he's making the distinction between the Father and the Son.
Right. And so if you're saying he's the Ancient of Days, then he is the Father.
He's not the Father, he is God, because as John begins, in the beginning was the Word.
Now you're going to John 1:1. Bro, stop. Just read this passage.
It's the same book. What are you talking about?
No, Revelation is not the same book as John.
No, I'm saying it's the same. It's the Bible. I'm quoting from the Bible. I'm not going to explain.
You're contradicting yourself every time. You said that Jesus claimed to be the Son of Man who approached the Ancient of Days. And then just as a side point, you said, oh, well, he's given the same description in Revelation, which I'm not like, I have 2 IQs in my brain. You're saying that he's identified with the Ancient of Days. If he's the Ancient of Days, but here the Ancient of Days is the Father, you're saying Jesus is the Father, which makes you a modalist.
I am not saying that Jesus is the Father. I'm saying that this description of God is then later attributed to Jesus. And can you please put it back up? Because in 10, in verse 10, it's speaking about before it was speaking about. So in verse 9, it was speaking about. Or before verse 9.
The Ancient of Days, yes.
Yeah. And before that, it was speaking about the beasts, how they looked, and he says a river of fire from. So verse 10, a river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened.
Okay.
So this is the holy people that he's speaking about.
No, it's not. What are you talking about? 18 my man, 18 tells you who they were. So the beasts begin first, and then he sees the vision of the one who approaches the Ancient of Days. Then he asks for the interpretation of the dream, and he tells him explicitly that the interpretation of the dream is the 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms, 4 earthly kingdoms. I, Daniel, was troubled in the spirit. Pay attention. You need to have reading comprehension, man. Like put your theology to the side. And the visions that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there and asked him the meaning of all this. Okay, so he's giving him your meaning is on the side. Right now, the actual author of the revelation is telling you the meaning. So he told me and gave me the interpretation. Allahumma barik. يعني علمه تأويل الرؤيا. So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The 4 great beasts are the 4 kings that will rise from the earth. But the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever, yes, forever and ever. And if you want to do that same type of exegesis, the Son of Man is given a kingdom that will last forever and ever, and they're giving a kingdom that will last forever and ever, so therefore they're the Son of Man. And then he stops interpreting it. Then he wanted to know the meaning of other things. It's explicit. And like I don't know what else to say after this, wallah.
Why, like, I'm trying to understand, why do you interpret the holy people, like, why do you ignore the part where it says that there were thousands upon thousands standing before him, and then he's speaking about the holy people?
Why am I interpreting the dream the way the angel interpreted it for Daniel? You just asked me that.
Yes, but you are saying that he is saying that the holy people are the Son of Man.
That's because it's in the same order. The beasts are spoken of, and then the Son of Man who's given the kingdom is spoken of. Then Daniel asks about that.
Sorry. In 13 to 14, there was no mention of the beast. The beast came before that.
That's what I'm saying. The beast came before that, and the interpretation.
Exactly, and before that, and after the beast.
Bro, hold on. The beasts came before that, and then the Son of Man came after, right?
No, in the middle there was the multitude of people that he was speaking about, the thousands upon thousands that were.
Bro, okay.
That were.
Are the beasts before verse 13?
Yes.
Okay, and the Son of Man is verse 13?
Yes.
Okay.
Before that,
maybe I need to get closer to my mic. The beasts were spoken of before the Son of Man, correct?
Uh-huh.
And the Son of Man was after the beasts, correct?
Uh-huh.
The interpretation of the dream, the beasts came
Hold
before
on,
the
hold
Son
on,
of
hold on.
Man.
Hold on. You're ignoring my point. In the middle, he's speaking about holy people.
That has
After the
nothing.
beasts,
That has nothing to do with the actual interpretation. It has nothing to
why
do with
does...
that.
Okay.
Because the words are different. He didn't ask him about the fire and the seeding. He asked him about the who was given dominion.
Did he? Where?
He says, I was troubled in the spirit, and I asked for the meaning of all this. And look at the answer. Are you telling me he gave him answers that he didn't ask for?
So you're saying he asked him who the Son of Man is?
Of course, because he gives him the answer about it.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
right
I
there.
don't see him asking about the Son
Okay,
of Man.
so if he didn't ask him, why is the angel telling him about that and not giving him an interpretation about the fire and the seats of the people on the seats?
He is. Look, he
Hold
told
on,
him about the beast.
we have to go to the next one because like you're really stretching the limits of
Hold on.
credulity.
No,
Bro.
let me make this point. You are saying that he is speaking about, so the angel is answering him saying the beasts. But if you're applying that the angel is telling him, interpreting for him the vision in 13 and 14, the beasts are not even mentioned in 13 and 14.
I'm not saying they're.
So
I'm
how,
not, Habibi, I'm not saying
why
they're
are you
mentioned.
applying?
I'm not saying they're mentioned in 13 and 14. I'm saying he asked him specifically about certain things that he saw in the vision. He interprets
He
the.
is not though. Where?
What is he asking him about? So
He
the
said,
whole.
I was troubled in spirit,
hold
and
on,
the vision that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there and asked him the meaning of all of this.
So the answer that he gave, the answer that the angel gave about the holy people receiving the kingdom and possessing it forever, what you're saying, that's in reference to the to the verse about like the thrones that were seated before and not
No,
the verse.
I'm not saying thrones. The intent. So
okay, so what is that? What question could he have? What question could Daniel have asked to warrant an answer about the sons of the Most High getting a kingdom that is forever? What is that? What is that in relation to? Prior to the question.
He is not asking about something specific because he
It's
doesn't understand.
Random. It's just a random thing that the angel said.
Read what he is saying, and I asked him the meaning of all this.
Yes. Okay. All this. Does all this include the Son of Man approaching the Most High?
Maybe he does later on.
Where is the meaning of the Son of Man in the rest of the interpretation?
Let's keep reading. Maybe it's there.
Keep reading. If it's not there, what are you gonna say?
Bro, I'm not a theologian. Like we can keep reading, but
I
can't make sense. I can't make sense.
You're stubborn and you're desperate. Now you're saying that he's going to. Your last bit of like saving grace is saying that he might interpret the Son of Man in the next passages. Correct?
I think the Son of Man is a.
I'm asking you what you think. I'm asking you what the angel interprets.
I'm not. I don't remember. I don't recall what's.
Okay, so that you don't remember. Okay, so if we read through it and there is no interpretation of that, either the angel left that completely open and ambiguous, like he said, you know what, Daniel, I'm not going to tell you about that, despite the words being there in the actual interpretation, saying that the sons of the Most High, they received the kingdom, the Son of Man received the kingdom, and it is forever and ever. That kingdom is going to be forever and ever. You're not a theologian to where you can make those two very easy connections, but you're a theologian to say that the interpretation about the holy people is something that is not given by the angel, which is earlier than verse 13. You're not making any sense, and you're contradicting your entire methodology. So with all due respect, we have to move to a next one. You already said it's implicit. The explicit interpretation is given, and you have not given anything except your own very desperate scrambling to make this not say what it says. So you want to talk about Exodus and the I am statement?
I think we're not getting anywhere because at the end of the day we have different point of views. I just want to say that when he's speaking about holy people, I think it's for me
holy people receiving the kingdom that is forever and ever. It has nothing to do with the Son of Man who receives the kingdom that is forever and ever.
Please let me finish this and then.
Yeah, but you have to mention the rest of the context. So when he's speaking about the sons of the Most High getting a kingdom that is forever and ever, your position is that it's not the Son of Man who receives the kingdom that is forever and ever.
I think also in Daniel 8 he then explains the Son of Man.
Yeah. But when the angel explains it about the sons of the Most High getting a kingdom that is for ever and ever, it's not in relation to the Son of Man getting a kingdom that is for ever.
Can you please let me finish my statements, though?
It's just a simple question. Then
No,
you can elaborate. You can say yes or no and
yes,
elaborate.
I am trying to, but please do not interrupt me.
No, well, bro, this is not how a conversation works. I ask you a clarifying question. You can say yes or no and then elaborate.
I'm trying to, but if you keep interrupting me, I cannot.
Let him finish. Let him finish, Yakhi. It's been a slow day.
Okay. Thank you. So
it's all good, bro. I'm on your side, by the way. I'm actually trying to learn from a Christian. Sam keeps,
my bad,
getting in the way.
Thanks, bro. I know you don't like Dragon Ball, though, but it's okay. So
lies.
When he's before there was the four beasts and a multitude of people before the throne. The angel first interprets the four beasts and then the holy people that will inherit the kingdom. If you go to Daniel 8, so next chapter, he is also speaking. There's a point about the Son of Man. He goes into that in a different point. Also, the angel. It's not a different. So scroll down a little bit.
Yeah.
A bit more. The interpretation of the vision. He goes on to as you can see, I came before in the place I was standing, was terrified, fell prostrate. Son of Man, he said to me, understand the vision that concerns the time of the end.
What does this have to do with anything, bro?
How does it not have anything to do with it?
You have not said a single thing by appealing to verse 8. What are you talking about, man?
He is continuing. He is continuing the vision, and then he goes into
other visions. He's going to other visions. Like our point of
no,
dispute
it's not. It's in the same vision.
I know, but okay, it's the same vision, but different themes, like different actual things that are happening. There's a ram. There's a goat.
It's not. He's speaking. He's speaking about Son of Man in 17. You can see he goes into the Son of Man.
Son of Man. He's talking to Daniel. Daniel is being referred to as Son of Man. As he came near the place,
you're right. Sorry.
Fell prostrate.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Bro, wallahi, you are just making exegesis on the fly.
No, bro. شوف Wissam, يا أخي. He just admitted that you're right. So let's.
Yeah. Sorry.
Now we have to.
I read that, and
because you read it right now. Because you read it right now. Go take a look at a scholarly work on Daniel. Read it with an open mind, and you'll see, like, any person who watches this on a rerun will see how extremely, like, nonsensical you're being. You contradicted your methodology multiple times. You make connections between I am and a different statement, ego emi haon in Exodus, that from two different books, from John or Matthew and Exodus, but a connection within the same dream, where it's literally interpreting the same dream in the same words. You have a hard time understanding that they're linked. This is what deriving the Trinity does to you. It makes you seem foolish.
Yeah, but you say it's different words, but it's literally holy people, and before there was multitude of people standing before the throne. So I disagree that it's
you disagree with the angel. That's fine. We can move on to the next point.
Yeah, but you're putting the words in the angel's mouth, though.
Not the text, the words, not the NIV. I'm putting it there.
So to be honest, I really feel that the specific point isn't explicit. At least we have XB admitting that it's not explicit. It has, like, the Son of Man, doesn't say the Son of Man, and we've agreed initially that the claim is insufficient. You said that.
You know, it's funny. I don't know if you mind saying this, but my friend Jack Bull, he just messaged me right now. Oh, you're in the chat. Okay, thank you, Jack. He's in the chat actually. He says, I didn't know this. He wrote his master's on the Son of Man.
Jack was here in the background like a second ago. I was like, is that him?
We have a scholar. Do you want to? I don't know if you want to bring him up.
It seems like he left, but he was there. I saw the name Jack Bull pop up. Jack, if you wanna join, please let us know.
Jack Bull XB is a Christian. Okay, so maybe and he's like a PhD scholar, so maybe it'll
okay, help. So he surely knows more than I do. Yeah, as I was
Alright.
saying, I'm
All
not.
right, we got Jack. Just give us a sec. Okay, Jack, just fixing up the camera, I guess.
But I do have to go though.
Hey, Jack, how you doing, bro?
What's up, my friend?
Hello everyone. How's it
How are
going?
you? Good.
Nice to have you on.
Yeah, good. I haven't got long. I don't know how, but West Ham, you used to keep popping up on my feed wherever I go. It's like you're the plague of the YouTube algorithm.
That's weird, yeah.
But
Because it's not even on my channel.
I wanted to pitch in because I think that the Son of Man discourse that you've been having is extremely complex, and one of the things that Christians can often get confused by is the term and what it entails, and they can also get quite scared because they don't realise that Bar and Nash is also used to describe other figures like Enoch and Ezekiel, and sometimes they come across that and are like, oh, but I thought this was a Jesus statement, and actually the whole thing can unravel quite quickly for them. So I've only come on briefly to say that yes, I did write my master's on this, particularly on the book of Morna Hooker, who's an excellent biblical scholar who was at Cambridge for many years. Her book's quite old now; it's 1960s, I think. And in it, she describes that the hoios to anthropou in Greek is just as much as a strange statement as it is in English, the Son of Man. Like, you think about that statement, that's a nonsense statement. Like, what does that mean? And in Hebrew and Aramaic, they would have had some context of that through Daniel and through Enoch, but for the Greeks, it was nonsense. And so, one of the things that I played with in my masters, along with Hooker, is what you were talking about, West Ham, basically, that somehow in the vision we begin with this single figure who approaches the Ancient One of Days, and he's given lots of nice things, and then when asked to explain the vision, somehow it becomes a corporate figure. It's the Holy Ones. There's a plurality to it. And it's interesting because the Gospels don't lose sight of this. Well, I say the Gospels. Only one Gospel really doesn't lose sight of this, and that's Mark. If you read the Son of Man sayings in Mark, they seem to reference the idea that Jesus is the Son of Man, and that his followers, if they join in with him, and in so long as they are following his commandments and taking up their cross, they may join in that figure and receive the same things that he has. And so the Son of Man moves from a singular to a plural, to the corporate identity. And so I suppose when I was listening to XB talking, I think that XB, it's not your fault. Like, it's a really confusing passage, but I think that when we go into this, that we have to also understand the depth behind the text that's being written, and the phrase in terms of its not just its use in Aramaic and Hebrew, but also in the Greek world, and the difference even between the two phrases, Bar Anash and Hoios Dianthropou, and how we interpret those things and how the people who are writing about them would have interpreted them. But again, I don't think that's XB's fault. I mean, that's just the way it goes, is that Christians are often taught a load of fluff, and they're not willing to wrestle with any of the things that might deconstruct them, basically.
Do you interpret like the now that I know that you wrote your master's on this, but like the passage about the plucking grain on the Sabbath? I know there are many scholars who say that the Son of Man there is like generic for a human being. So when Jesus says that, he gives them like the parable or like the example of David eating the showbread, and so therefore it was like a necessity. So he said the Sabbath was made for Bar Inash or Hahuya to Anthropo, not man for the Sabbath, not the Son of Man for the. Therefore, Hoti, I believe in Greek or whatever, that the Son of Man is Lord over the Sabbath. That Son of Man there is referring to the human being, not Jesus himself.
Well, there's two things about that. So the first thing is, it depends what we think about whether the Son of Man portions of Mark are genuine. Because even before Marcionite priority and all of our crazy wanderings into that realm, obviously Marcion is not a Son of Man sort of guy. The literary critics have always thought that these were later editions, the Son of Man sayings, because Jesus referring to himself as the Son of Man seems unlikely. Was the thought process. In addition to that, there isn't a great textual reception of the term. I mean, you look at the Apostolic Fathers, even if you take the standard traditional dating and everything's written by who it said it was, etc., nobody is passing on this epithet, right? So we have to ask that first question. I think that they are probably later. Well, of course, I'd say that Martial priority. I think they are later, and I think that the authors are writing them in for three reasons. One, to reconcile the Hebrew Bible with Christianity, because, as we know, some people are trying to separate and distinguish those two. And as the end of the Bar Kokhba revolt comes in 135, we're now in a position where Jews and Christians can maybe reconcile in some way, although that doesn't always come very easily. So that's the first reason. They're trying to reconcile Jesus with Hebrew Bible stuff. The second is because I do think that they're aware of that corporate figure. And so when we talk about the Bar Nash referring to people, I don't think it refers to people general. I think it more likely refers to people who are with Jesus. In the same way that Jesus says the Son of Man will die, and then he sort of invites them into it that you also have to take up your cross. You also have to join in with this game. Death, not so fun. It's the same principle, right? You're either in or you're out. And that goes with the rest of the story of Mark, doesn't it? With Mark, you're part of the team and you can hear and understand, or you're not, and I make things hard for you and you're not with us. And then the third reason I think they're adding it in is because I think that, and this is more speculative, is that there is a tradition going around that is saying it's Jesus, right? And they're thinking about Enoch in the book of Enoch. They're thinking about Ezekiel, and they're saying, well, if we're going to have one of these figures and associate it with anyone, it's got to be Jesus, right? And so they're the three reasons I think that this comes about. But no, I wouldn't say that it's people general. I do think it's only those who are in the team.
Yeah, that's why it's called the saints of the Most High, not anyone who is
Yeah.
But,
it's not roll up.
That specific passage that I brought up in Mark, I brought it up because it doesn't have any apocalyptic connotations if you read it as if it were an Aramaic euphemism for a human being. And it makes sense in the context. And then what Bar Ehrman brings up is that Matthew, who's known for redacting Mark, he redacts that passage in multiple ways. One, removing Abiathar, and then second, by reworking the narrative into where it's explicitly about Jesus in Matthew.
Well, I mean, we can talk about the evolution of who's redacting who and what's going on there, because I think Ehrman is wrong. I still don't. I think for him to confidently say that X is redacting Y when he doesn't include Papias' evidence here or Marcion's evidence here, I think is difficult. What I do think is true, though, is that whoever writes Mark is the only one, and this is ironic, I think, if you think that Matthew comes from a Jewish background, he's the only one who wants to use the term and wrestle with its singular and corporate nature. And Morna Hooker points this out in her book. I really can't recommend this book enough. That it seems to me that both Matthew and Luke completely misunderstand this figure. And like you say, have either removed or Mark has added in, who knows, these phrases to emphasize his point.
So you're not a Markan prioritist when it comes to the canonical forms of the Gospels?
What does that mean? I mean, I look, I don't want to take your viewers.
That's
I don't
want to take your viewers on a crazy journey of sort of 30 years of Marcus Vincent scholarship, because I've got to go as well. But I don't know what you mean by that, right? I think the framework within which you ask the question is wrong. So the answer, and so Marcus and I, little plug for my YouTube channel here on Patristica, we all disagree about this, about what gospel came first. And so Mark Bilby wrote his wonderful PhD thesis on QN and the gospel of the poor. Marcus Vincent thinks that Marcionite priority is probably true and that Marcion publishes the first gospel. And I think somewhere in between them both that there are pre-gospels that predate Marcion, but that their content is unknown to us. Their names, however, of the apostolic tradition are known. For example, Papias mentions irregular Mark and Matthew in his own language, which is more likely Aramaic than Hebrew, although it's often known as Hebrew Matthew. And then those things develop from what I can only assume to be, based on the term irregular narrative, of sayings or sort of thoughts of Jesus to a systematization in Marcion's gospel. So when I say priority, what I mean by that is that Marcion has the first thing that we might recognize as a gospel.
Yeah.
But in terms of Jesus' material,
prior to him, Hebrew, Matthew,
Papias, and
Yeah.
whatever that means. But as Papias recognizes himself, he says, I don't care about gospels. I don't want them because the gospel John is here with me and I can listen to him. Now that makes some logical sense. I understand that. But that's unhelpful for our cause as biblical scholars.
What I meant by mark in priority is canonical mark after, of course, because it seems to me, I don't think, like when I look at synoptic studies, it's very hard to look at Matthew and Mark and not see like direct interdependence and redactional activity. In many cases where it's Peter Head, so he wrote the book Christology and Mark in Priority and Christology.
Yeah,
and he shows like and many other scholars as well.
But again, this is a wrong framework. We don't have Christian texts that develop like that. So, the way that we were talking about it the other day with Dr. Tony Burke, who's an expert in the infancy gospel of Thomas, which we recently had a discovery of. It's more the case that actually these texts are being written together alongside each other and redacted again alongside each other. So it's not the case that Mark writes, publishes, Matthew receives, redacts, interpolates, publishes, Luke, etc. It's more the case that these are several schools that are hanging around. My assumption would be in Rome or in surrounding areas. I think Irenaeus probably has a lot of a part to play on this, maybe Polycarp as well. And they are producing these texts simultaneously in conversation with one another.
Yeah,
now,
yeah. They would. I'm saying, well, for my case, they would have to know each other because you wouldn't just have like independent people showing redactional activity and not knowing each other.
No, but it's not the case that Mark, like I say, Mark then published and Matthew took. It's that Mark might have done a bit, Matthew takes, Matthew does a bit, Mark takes. And that's why the synoptic question is so difficult to answer, because everyone's thought about a chronology here. Mark, Matthew, Luke. And that's the wrong way of viewing.
Yeah.
And we were
You're saying it's more sporadic.
Yeah. And it's what I think Mark Bilby calls waves and echoes, right? There's waves of these texts going on.
Isn't it simpler to assume that it was one person writing each?
No. So one of the reasons, and I thought Tony Burke was brilliant on this, and Marcus as well. We talked about nobody writes a gospel thinking that they're not going to be the only gospel, right? In the sense that when you have the school of the Epicureans or the Stoics or Sophocles or whenever these Greek sort of thinkers, you write your text to promulgate it and make sure that everyone comes to your school. You're the man. Dr. Bull, he knows what he's talking about. He wrote a fantastic book on Ignatius. Go to him. And West Ham says, no. Read my book on Ignatius because I know what I'm talking about. That's forthcoming, West Ham's and so similarly, we don't write text thinking that we're going to be lumped in with one another.
Yep.
So right. the author of the Gospel of Mark writes it thinking, I'm writing the Gospel.
Right.
And so, again, there's no... what there probably was a redactor or a school, it's better to think of these things as schools rather than individuals, I think, who went through the canonical texts and maybe played with them. But it's not to say that it all came ex nihilo from one person. Because not to mention the fact that the glaring contradictions, for example, when the veil was torn in two between Matthew and Luke, or the story of Jesus just going down into Capernaum and its situation in Luke versus Matthew, someone wouldn't have done that and been that stupid, actually. We often think of these people as stupid. They're not stupid. They're really, really clever. So then I think probably Irenaeus is the first person to bring these gospels together, and he gives us that absolutely bonkers phrase. Wow, yeah, there are four winds of the earth, and so we have four gospels. Yeah, he was a scientist.
I'm working on getting David Trobish to talk about his thesis on that. Like, he thinks Polycarp might have published it, or yeah.
The only issue with that, and the only issue with suspecting Polycarp over Irenaeus, is Polycarp's letter to the Philippians.
He uses none of it.
He wrote four Gospels with the sole intention that they'd become the key books of early Christianity, and then references none of them.
Yeah,
I mean that's
he tries to answer that a little bit, but yeah, I think even Christian Anfu and Wagner, they have a similar thing, but
then we have to look at Tatian as well, right? Like, so Tatian comes from Justin's school, and Tatian seems to know all four of them, but yet Justin doesn't.
I don't think he wrote the Diatessaron. I don't think Tatian wrote the Diatessaron. I'm with Castles on this.
Okay,
Yeah, there's just too many witnesses to the harmony without ever ascribing it to Tatian. We get that by Eusebius.
So let me be clear. Whether I think it's the actual individual Tatian, but I think it comes from Justin's school.
Mhm.
Again, I think it's so unhelpful because we lack so much extant material from the 2nd century. We have decided to fixate upon individuals. And that's not the way that history works. Only by happenstance do we have Ignatius' 3 epistles rather than Paul's letter to the third letter to the Corinthians. Only by pure luck do we have, no Papias in 1 Clement. That's literally just luck.
That's true.
What's this? Oh, sorry. Am I losing the group?
No.
Sorry,
It's because like we're riffing and Freddy's like.
Sorry.
Not at all, Jack. Not at all, bro.
You
appreciate
blown my mind.
appreciate all
Like,
your-
we have to talk about this like ASAP. Your ideas on how like Marcion fits with the synoptic issue and stuff. I've thought about it, but it is confusing for me as well, to be honest.
If I may, then let's just give the viewers context here, because they're probably, especially if they're from an Islamic background, they're probably like, who on earth is Marcion? Okay. Yeah, right, precisely. So Marcion is a really famous figure in the 2nd century, and he publishes the first ever New Testament.
We
So
actually
the first
spoke about him like 30 minutes ago.
Oh, did you? Oh, maybe I don't need to give an intro then.
No. That it was very brief. So go ahead.
Okay.
He's
So he
that popular.
publishes-
I'm saying he comes up.
He publishes the first ever New Testament, and he uses those words. And in his New Testament, we get a text that he wrote called the Antithesis. Put that to one side in a box. We get one gospel called the Gospel, because, as I mentioned, nobody writes a gospel thinking theirs is going to be one of many.
Yeah.
And his gospel is rather similar to the Gospel of Luke, but it lacks an infancy narrative and the ascension stuff. So it begins in Luke 3, Jesus descends into Capernaum. Now, whether he descends physically from heaven or just from Jerusalem downwards, who knows, but Jesus turns up. And then following this gospel, we get 10 of what he calls the apostolos, Paul's epistles, but we only get 10 of them. So we don't get the pastorals, and we definitely don't get Hebrews. But their content is different slightly, or sometimes drastically, from what we have in canonical Paul. And this is the first New Testament ever published. And so this figure, who in about the 140s makes quite a big impact, so much so that his sect continues for at least another 300 years. And in fact, I received a letter from a Marcionite church only a couple of weeks ago saying that they were grateful for my work, and I was like, dude, you need to relax.
No way.
But he causes quite the stir, and it makes many proto-Catholic fathers respond to him. So Justin writes to him. Irenaeus writes against him. Tertullian loses all his marbles and writes 5 volumes against the man who's been dead maybe 60 years. And they attack his work. They attack his where they have had ad hominem arguments against him, as well as his doctrine and theology. And this figure, we think, is the great, the most unresearched figure, and probably one of the more significant, because the impact he makes is huge. And the only reason we don't have his stuff is because he was deemed a heretic. And what happens to heretics? Their material, it's not that there was a great purge of him necessarily, but his material gets lost because who keeps copying it? Nobody. And so Marcion is this figure. And we think that he probably presents to us, depending on whether you're Mark or Marcus, my 2 colleagues, one of the earliest versions, if not the earliest version, of both a gospel and also the Pauline epistles.
That's him. That's
Is
him.
that clear? Is that clear for those, for the uninitiated? Is that
Farid?
Yeah, Farid, is that?
It sounds really far-fetched.
Ah, yes.
It's not.
So here's one of the things, Farid, is that, I mean, look, you're talking to, and again, I'll put my cards on the table. I mean, I'm very much your intended audience. I am the Christian who's explaining Christianity to you, right? So there you go. You got your title. So there's no doubt it's fringe. Okay, let's say that, right? There's no doubt about that. We are definitely
among non-specialists. It's fringe, yeah.
Yes, yeah, and I think, but that's not unimportant, right? Because I mean, it's the specialist I need to convince. Yeah, I mean, that's important. The reason why it's not fringe is thus. Farid, I don't know how much you've looked at early Christianity and looked for evidence of the New Testament in early Christian writings. But do you know how many quotations or certain quotations there are in the 2nd century of either the Gospels or the Pauline epistles?
I
Certain.
have no idea. I got no idea. I'm
Yeah,
assuming it's a small number.
Yeah, try basically none, right? And
Okay.
so there was this great guy called Kurt Allond. He was a very, very famous biblical scholar, and he wrote. Oh well, it was part of a duo called Kurt Allond who give us the great New Testament that we have today. When we ever see a Greek New Testament, it's the Kurt Allond, and that's
Oh,
the
Nestle.
Nestle Allond. Sorry, Nestle Allond. That's the creme de la creme. Well, sort of. Marcus is poking holes in it at the moment, but the creme de la creme of good, yes, Greek New Testament collation manuscripts. But one of the questions he asked, and this is over 5 decades ago, is he said, okay, we have all the Gospels. They're written between 70 and 100. We have Paul's letters. They're written between 50 and 70. Why does nobody know them in the early church? Why do Ignatius, and Polycarp, and Diognetus, and Barnabas, and to some extent one Clement, and maybe the Didache, depending on what your view is of that, not reference these texts with the most wonder and amazement, right? Nobody knows these things.
So
Where have they
these authors are just mentioned, but they're never quoted. Is that what you're saying? Or
In some cases, never even mentioned. I mean, Justin Martyr, well into the 150s, doesn't even talk of Paul. Now, he does know Paul, that's for certain. And the reason why he doesn't mention him is complex, and maybe come onto it later, it's to do with Marcion. But, I mean, Ignatius of Antioch, for example, knows who Paul is. He mentions him by name once, quotes none of his letters, and even contradicts his theology.
Okay.
What? How? He's an apostle. What? How have you done that? He quotes Peter. He doesn't know his epistles. How has he managed that? He knows none of the Gospels, and yet we're led to believe they've been in circulation, in the case of the Gospel of Mark, which was written around 70, for at least 40 years. How has he not read it? How does he not even know it? In fact, he doesn't even know one saying of Jesus. In fact, I go further. He doesn't even talk about the resurrection of Jesus. The only thing they talk about is the crucifixion of Jesus. And this is what led my Doctor of Art, Marcus Vincent, to ask the question, what on earth has happened here? Because it seems that the resurrection is almost entirely absent. It's not saying they didn't believe in it. Let me be really clear about that. They probably did. But it was not the focus. And only when Marcion releases the Pauline epistles for the first time does the resurrection really come back into mainstream Christian thought. Before that, like I say, Clement, Ignatius, Barnabas, Diognetus, etc. Resurrection? No. Crucifixion? Oh yeah. Yes. That we love. So what's going on here? I mean, where are these texts? Now, my position remains that if you want to believe that all of the Gospels are 1st century, you got to prove it, chicken. You got to prove it. You need to show me where they are. And the best argument they can come up with, there was a book written, I think it was last year, Jonathan Bernier wrote a book called Rethinking the Dates of the New Testament or something along those lines, where he argued that all of the Gospels are maybe 50 or something. And his best argument was, well, they mentioned the temple and that was destroyed in 70 and therefore must be pre-70. Okay, look, if I write a biography on Winston Churchill, I'm not going to mention the iPhone. Yeah, I mean, that's a bananas position to hold. And so we're only seeking to answer the questions that people are just ignoring.
So when do you think these Gospels date?
Just let me plug one thing real quick. Jack Bull has an amazing, like very concise and very detailed video on canon. So if you just search on YouTube, it was on History Valley. If you just write Jack Bull canon, he goes through like the methodology and which criteria are like more important than other criteria and the different canons that different church fathers had. But this issue of internal evidence versus external attestation is touched upon. It's very important.
Jack, just very, very, very briefly for the audience that are sometimes audiences lazy to look up other videos, just since you're here, if you can just give us a taste.
Of what the canon video?
No, I mean, like, when were these Gospels originally written, in your opinion?
Okay, so we have to be careful with dates. I think that one of the really toxic things that's happened in early Christian studies is that everyone's like, give me the date, month, and time, and I can't. What I can give you is an upper and lower bound for the beginning and end of texts. So when we're talking about the original Jesus material that we no longer call Q because that's synonymous with a load of rubbish, I think we are dealing with mid to late first century stuff. Okay, that Mark and Matthew, their traditions are probably genuinely apostolic, and that they are talking of things that they heard Jesus say. When you're talking about the canonical final redactions that you and I would have in our Gospels, someone's just accused me of being an atheist. In our final Gospels, I think that they are probably post 170. Okay. And there's layering in between that.
And that depends. Some quote unquote canonical texts, like the King James Version, are 16th century in their finished form. So it's not.
You did break my heart a little bit when you showed the NIV to that last fellow. It was quite the sad moment for me that we talk about the NIV as a credible source. But yeah, I mean,
it's the default on Bible Gateway.
Yeah, well, this is more about them than it does anything else. So yeah, so there's the two upper and lower bounds, basically, sort of mid to late first century that stuff is starting.
For the tradition.
Finished 170. Now, again, I'm open to revising all of my opinions here based on new evidence, but what I'm giving you is that based on the evidence we have, that's the best we can say. Because whether we like it or not, the first verifiable account of any gospel that we have is Marcion. And that's concrete. That's the only thing we can be certain of. Everything else is up for grabs.
And how do we have this information about Marcion in the first place?
That's a great question. So one of the big problems with Marcionite scholarship is that we don't have anything by the man himself. Right. As I mentioned earlier, heretic stuff gets lost. So the only stuff we get about him is from people who hated him, what we call in the business heresiologists, people who talk about the heretics. And Judith Liu and I can't remember the name of the other fellow are still playing into this. They call him the arch heretic and the heretic. So we mostly get our stuff through Justin to start with, who writes. And notice that Justin writes to Marcion. He still regards him as a Christian, but can't really work out what's going on. Right? There's a bit of a confusing mess there. Irenaeus then stops that engagement and starts to write kata against Marcion, and that's where we begin to see this heresiology really begin. The main sources, though, that we have for his texts are Tertullian. He's our big fellow. He wrote 5 volumes against him. Yeah. Epiphanius, Codex Bezae, and sometimes Jerome. There are sort of really big contributors to what Marcion believed. So that's how we know about him.
Do you take also the Adamantian dialogues?
Oh, sorry. Yes, and the Adamantian dialogues. Sorry. Yes, of course. So all we're describing there is basically texts that have been written criticizing Marcion, and also discussing fictitious engagements between Marcionites and others, basically. And that's one of the reasons we find it quite difficult to work out true things about him, because usually the heresiologists aren't kind. For example, in the case of another heretic called Apelles, they just accuse him of being a promiscuous man who puts himself about a bit. And actually probably none of that was true, but it's a good way to attack people, to say that they are sexually active when they shouldn't be. In the case of Marcion, things that we can say about him: he was probably very wealthy. His father was a bishop. He was from Sinope. He was a ship merchant, almost certainly, which also gave him really great access to ports where trade, new texts, new ideas would be milling about. He was, according to Tertullian, expelled from Rome, although this seems to be myth. But like I say, he engaged with many early Christians, proto-Christians, I'd say, like Justin, and was accepted actually for the most part to begin with. So that's how we know about him.
It's fascinating stuff, Jack. Appreciate all the information, bro. And you said it's not fringe within scholarship, right?
It's fringe-ish. Yeah, I mean, I would say, however, that one of the things that we're waiting for basically is now good responses.
Okay.
Because one of the
could we say that, because you mentioned that we can assume that some of the Gospels are mid to late first century. I mean, isn't that sufficient? Sure, okay, there may have been changes in the second
So
century.
you
but
said we can or can't? I didn't hear you.
Yeah,
You
like
said-
it's
Yeah,
No,
the
you said can,
beginnings of
we
Gospels.
can assume or we can't assume.
let me try to rephrase what I was saying. Okay.
My bad.
So mid to first century, mid to late first century, the Gospels were written. Yeah, okay, there were additions later on, some changes later on, but these texts do originate from the first century. Isn't that sufficient?
For what?
No. He said so there's a difference between the text and the traditions. What he was
Right.
saying, if you can clarify, that the traditions, some of them that we find in the canonical text, especially like the sayings of Jesus,
Yeah.
are from that time period. On the canonical form with narrative and all these other things that
Okay.
was, yeah.
Yeah,
But the Gospels themselves, like there was a Gospel of Mark in the first century, right?
Not of Mark.
I think it was called Mark.
Okay.
But Papias is Mark.
Yeah, but but the thing is, like, I don't want anyone to get confused that I'm talking anything about Mark, 1:1 to 16:8. Right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, and Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And on another day, Jesus healed a leper. And so this is what we're dealing with. It's not in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. In John, it's not that opening. It's not that beautiful rhetorical prose and poetry. It's the unsystematized sayings and deeds of Jesus.
We call that the Injil, Jack, by the way. For all the
What?
Christians listening, we call that the Injil. In the Quran, it calls the Evangelion or the Gospel something that was given to Jesus that he directly preached. So it wasn't like a fixed book of narratives, or Jesus went to the mountain by himself to pray and then somebody approached him. It was just orations, like Q
I
or
think
Thomas or that.
there was probably some storytelling as well. Like I don't think I don't agree with Marcus that there was no story to it. I think there probably was some story. Like, I think, for example, there was probably the story of Jesus feeding a 5,000, right? But whether he then says at the end of it, "Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you will not see the kingdom of heaven," that's the bit that we might, quibble over. But I do think there would have been some story, just like I say, without systematization. Whatever Papias is describing is an irregular narrative. That cannot mean a nice story from start to finish.
Jack, I gotta ask. I mean, I appreciate you being here and helping us out with this information and taking us on this interesting ride. But I just gotta ask, if you don't mind me asking, and if this isn't too straightforward, why are you a
get it all the
Christian?
time. I get it all the time. I knew that question was coming. I actually have answered this question on my channel. I try to refrain from it because of both the vitriol I've received over Twitter of people telling me to kill myself, both from every community, atheist, Christian, Muslim, whatever. And I also refrain from it because I think it also tends to murky the fruit of my research, which I find really difficult. People's like, "How can I trust you're a Christian?" It's like, yeah, but read my I almost swore then. Read my argument. Like, don't. Anyway, why I'm a Christian? I'm a Christian for two reasons. I converted when I was 21. I do think, like I say, that the origins of these stories do go back to an apostolic period, and I do believe that the apostles saw and heard what they have passed on. And the second reason is a purely experiential and emotional response, which I have no business trying to justify to learned people, because that has no place in a rational world, unfortunately.
People know me on like TikTok and Twitter. I don't. To me, experiential, like empirical, or self-empirical experiences or whatever, I think are sometimes more important than some things, if we can arrive at them. If the things are arrived at deductively, but yourself that you've experienced something powerful, there's no one who can belittle that, to be honest. Like maybe if you're trying to prove it in a court of law, yeah, maybe, but for you personally, it's something powerful, but it just can't override the things that are like reasonable and stuff. But and for people who are not like familiar with all that, this is not weird. Like you said, in the early period, Marcion was not like totally excommunicated, and he believed, supposedly he believed in two gods, like one evil god, a demiurge, and one greater god. Like, all you're saying is the finished form of the New Testament was later on, and so, like, how is that so mind-blowingly like heretical when we have early church fathers who believed some crazy things as well?
And this is one of the really key things, and I think that often, so I should also put my concept, I'm a Catholic. One of the issues I think that when we're having this discussion is that I actually do think that if you're a Protestant, this is really terrible news for you. Right, like what I'm saying is actually curtains for Protestantism, because and we talked about this actually, West Ham, before, didn't we? You know, that claim that is made in the Quran, you know, you people of the book, that is a serious Protestant problem. That they are literally the people of the book, and the Catholic tradition has never been like that. And indeed, the Catholics never even affirmed a Bible to require the assent of faith until 1547.
Trent.
Right? So you didn't even need, as a Catholic, to believe in the Bible per se, as these books, until then. And it shows the effort and or lack thereof of the Catholics to affirm the Bible in that sense. They've always believed the Church was a conciliar process that happens through ecumenical councils, and so that's why I don't have the same issue with the Bible, because I think that it's through apostolic succession, of which I've just had a nice discussion with someone the other day, that the authority is passed, and not through the book. And the book's nice, and I like it, but it's not the central element. But anyway, thank you for letting me ramble to you for the last however long. I only meant to come in for 5 minutes, and then I've been here 35. So
amazing.
Being here, Jack. We appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure.
Check out Jack's channel, Patristica. Like hours and hours and hours of content on everything. They even again got Infancy Gospel of Thomas. They discussed with one of the premier scholars in the field. So we get a lot of knowledge from there.
Yeah, we've got a new video coming out on Saturday about Ignatius and Barnabas, so that should also be good.
Wow, looking forward to that personally.
Great.
Thanks for joining us.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a better one.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, don't be a stranger. God bless.
Bye.
That was a nice surprise. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. And we got BR. Hey, BR.
What's up?
Hello. Doing all right. What's up? What's up with you?
I'm good. I'd like to thank you guys for taking a minute. It's an opportunity to talk to educated people like you guys. It's not every day. So you guys want to learn about Jesus from a Christian?
Please, yeah.
Okay. So, okay. I don't think I will tell you guys anything new like Christian belief.
I'm actually very ignorant of Christianity. Wissam knows the thing. I'm serious. I've barely read anything about Christianity. I've read Mark and John, and I think that's it. So I don't know too much about Christianity. So
Front to front?
Yeah, like both Gospels fully.
Bro, you're like, you've eclipsed a lot of layman Christians right there.
Right. So, yeah, what Christians believe about Jesus, at least the Orthodox ones, is Jesus is the divine Son of God, the second person of the Trinity, who took on flesh and died and resurrected for the sins of the world and resurrected. That was as the first Son of the Father and will rule for eternity as the God man. Because I think that's like a basic summary.
Okay.
God, man.
And why do you believe in this?
Why do I believe it's through the Bible and tradition. I'm Catholic.
Okay.
I don't have time to do all the puzzle work. So basically, if by Catholic tradition, like affirming the Nicene Trinity, the Council of Chalcedon, that Jesus is both man and God, and in the Bible, you can say like this many times where Jesus attributes himself properties that are only known to God.
One more time, can you please repeat that?
In the Bible, What
Yeah.
I've noticed, there's many instances where Jesus ascribes to himself properties that only known to God.
Okay.
For example, being the resurrection and the life, the light of the world. Even like you said, you read Mark, like in the beginning of Mark, when
Yeah.
they make the allusion between the chapter in Isaiah and this and the I think the friend with Sam will know it better. When they take the passage to Isaiah and they
Well,
and
I'm sorry. I lost my connection for like a minute. I don't know what you're talking about.
so I was saying that as a Catholic, like I believe that Jesus is God from the ecumenical councils, Chalcedon and the Council of Nicaea, and for the Bible, basically there are many instances where Jesus ascribes to himself properties, attributes of God, like being the light of the world,
Do
or
you feel that's
things like.
sufficient for one to assume that someone's God?
Mm, not.
Like imagine I don't know, bro. Like Wissam, name a random celebrity.
A random celebrity, Gennady Golovkin.
Someone else, someone I know.
I don't know, Michael Jackson. That's reached where you are. That's the only thing I know.
So Michael Jackson claims to be God. Okay, he
Muzan
doesn't.
Kibutsuji, by the way. His name is
So,
Muzan Kibutsuji. But keep going.
so
I see
So
you.
Michael Jackson not only like mentions properties that are exclusive to God, but Michael Jackson flat out says, "I'm God." He doesn't stop at "I am," but he goes on to fully say, "I'm God."
Yeah, he's a.
That's not sufficient. That's not sufficient for you to assume that he's God.
Okay, that's sufficient to say that he claims to be
Yes,
God.
yes,
But I think if you are both Muslim, okay, we assume that Jesus is a prophet, so he's not lying. So he will not be blaspheming or doing things like that. So if he said it if he really said it, because
yeah,
you can reject the gospel, oh, that's fine. But if
yeah,
he really said it, either he's a liar and he's not a prophet, or
yeah.
he's a prophet and he's God somehow.
Or
Get,
maybe
you
he
get me?
or maybe he didn't say everything that you think he
And
said.
that's why I say that if you
What
don't
have you
believe
said?
in it, it's
Yeah.
fine. But
So
I don't have the
Yeah.
IQ
can you name
to
your
discuss.
top five? Like I without going through them, I just want to know like your perspective, your top five statements of Jesus, peace be upon him, from the Bible, where you think he's claiming to be God. Just the claim.
Okay. We have when Jesus said that he's a resurrection,
Resurrection and the
and
life.
the life.
Okay, that's one.
Yeah. What he said, just as the Father has light in him, the Son also has light in him.
Okay, life in him, you mean?
Life, I think it's life.
Yeah, life.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's that. There is like the normal what the before Abraham was, I am.
Or that's a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So two more.
I'm the way, the truth, and the life.
No one comes to the Father except through me. Okay.
No one comes to the Father except through him. My sheep hear them. I think that's the same thing.
Yeah. One more. Probably I and the Father are one.
I am the Father of one. Yeah, it was in the context of they give him eternal life, things like that.
Okay.
If
So
you,
that's five.
if you want to take revelation, I'm the Alpha and the Omega,
No,
the
like
beginning
things
and the
that
end.
Jesus said in his ministry. I mean,
By
so
the way,
Oh, so we only take it from the Gospels. Okay, no problem.
no. Yes, things that he said. You already gave me five. Okay.
Okay, fine.
All those five are from the Gospel of John.
oh,
Do you know? Like, isn't that kind of not weird to you? Like all of the unique divine claims, and I asked this to I did this experiment with Christians all the time. Like they will only quote as there is like a movement trying to find his divinity in like Mark by syllogisms and stuff like that. But when you ask a Christian, when did Jesus claim to be God? It's usually all from the Gospel of John. Now, from a scholarly perspective, you have Mark. Let's remove Marcion. Okay, let's remove his Evangelion. That's more higher, scholarship. Let's say Mark, and whoever Mark was relying on. Let's say Mark was relying on Peter, and he was mostly relying on Peter according to the church tradition. Okay, so you have Mark, which is Peter. Then you have Matthew, who relied on Mark and used his own sources probably. Then you have Luke. Luke explicitly says there were many eyewitnesses who told him, who transferred some of these things. Okay, and then you have Q, which they both pulled from. And then you have let's say Paul and some of the Catholic epistles. They all, in one way or another, mirror something that Jesus said. Especially James. James has a few things that you can attribute to the sayings of Jesus. None of them found it important in their gospels or in their preaching to mention the most important proof texts of Jesus' divinity. Why do you think that is?
Like you asked me for my favorite, but it's other they as you said, the ones from like Matt and Matthew that are kind of deep
Yeah, I left
theology.
it general just to see where your mind would go, and it went
Okay.
to John.
Generally, I think like John was like the closest like disciple like to Jesus, but according to tradition, I think. I don't really know.
That would be Peter.
I don't know what that means. Like he would say, he was a friend. He was the most beloved disciple. He always said that. I think I've seen many times.
Yeah, but in terms of like the closest person, that would probably be Peter. Peter has the most praise. John is not even mentioned too often in the New Testament. But it's Peter who got the revelation. John is completely absent in the book of Acts as well. It's Peter and Paul. But even then, I asked for your for the top. Somebody in the chat saying his favorite. I never said favorite. I said top 5. That doesn't mean your favorite. That means I assumed that you knew it's not like ice cream. Like top 5 where somebody else.
The others are like too long.
Yeah, exactly. They require a lot of deep,
a lot of theological work and references, all that stuff.
So at least the explicit ones that your mind went to are
John.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even church tradition, like let's say Epiphanius or Eusebius, they say that John wrote his gospel by compulsion from the Holy Spirit. So Epiphanius says that once Matthew and Mark had already wrote down their gospels, John saw it deficient. John saw it as deficient. It did not include some of the most important things that he said. How is that possible? If they're like Mark begins with the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, his whole ministry. In the book of Acts, Luke tells Theophilus, whoever Theophilus is, I have told you everything that Jesus has said and did. And they have a lot of convergence, a lot of stories that they take from each other. So Luke takes from Matthew, Matthew takes from Luke, Mark takes from, they all take from Mark basically. But they never decided to put in, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Before Abraham was, I am. I and the Father are one. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the true vine, etc., etc. This is why if you read any book on Christology, and this is just like the tip of the iceberg, John even contradicts the synoptics in multiple places, like explicitly contradicts them about geography, about dates, about certain things that Jesus said, etc. So pick your book. So Christology in the Making by James Dunn, or Christology in the New Testament by Christopher Tuckett, or Ancient Christian Gospels by Helmut Kester. All these are Christians from Oxford, from Harvard, from Princeton. They say John is completely useless in terms of Christological significance. He might have, and I interviewed
useless.
Useless in terms of finding out who Jesus was. Because his traditions are very theologized, and they don't have any precedence in the early books. Nor is John even quoted at all. Like these passages, they're not quoted until Theophilus of Antioch in 180. Whereas Matthean parables, pericope, like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Judge not, for which judgment you use will be used against you. Pray for those who persecute you. Woe be to that man, for it is better for him that a rock be tied and thrown into the abyss, than etc., etc. Whoever looks at a woman with lust, etc. All of these are mentioned in the apostolic literature, but John is not mentioned. And so all of this data converges to show that the passages that identify Jesus as God in your mind, they come later. And they were manufactured for a specific purpose. Whereas if Mark had any intention about showing his audience who Jesus was, he would not have been sufficed without those passages if Jesus actually uttered them. If Matthew wanted to do that, same thing. If Luke wanted to do that, same thing. Because they repeat each other's. 90% of Mark is in Matthew. in one shape or another. 90%. But instead of using material that Mark already had, he could have used these very important passages that supposedly come from Jesus' lips. I don't find any reason why that would be.
I get what you're saying, but I suppose you know about like the reference of Isaiah in the beginning of the Gospel of Mark.
Yeah, that's a mistake from Isaiah.
Isaiah, the prophet, made a mistake.
No, Mark made a mistake.
Ah.
In Mark chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, it says, "As it is written in Isaiah the prophet, behold, I send my messenger before your face to prepare your way before me, a voice crying out into the wilderness," etc., etc. That's not from Isaiah. Only the last part is from Isaiah. The beginning two are from Exodus and Malachi. And not only that, but the verse from Isaiah is changed. Mark gives a rendering that changes the tense. Prepare the way of our God to prepare the way of the Lord. So Mark is changing the text of Isaiah, and he's misattributing it to Isaiah. And by the way, that's not from Jesus' own lips. That's just Mark anyway. And that requires interpretation. Jews saw that, behold your God in Isaiah.
Yeah, you're right.
That they're coming out of captivity and whatever, because God can't be seen. But yeah, so that, and in fact, I'm not alone on this. Jerome, famous exegete and the creator of the Vulgate, he said Mark here made a mistake. He writes a lamentation. He says, "Oh Peter, your son Mark, he has made a mistake, not in the spirit, but in the flesh." And therefore, later scribes had to correct in Isaiah the prophet to "in the prophets" to correct him. Right. So that the citation is mistaken, the wording is different, and even then you don't interpret. It's not from Jesus' lips, and even if it was from Jesus' lips, it's not an explicit reference of him being God. But all of these high Christological statements are only in John.
I do get that point, and it's not like it's the first time that I heard about it. Like, I'm from a place that all this book that you have stated, like, I can't really buy them. Like, I'm from Cameroon in Africa. I can't even buy them. Like, it's not even possible for me.
You can't even what?
I can't buy them. Like, I can't even like.
Which book? Buy what?
Like the books that you stated that need to.
Oh yeah. Oh, you don't have to. If you have internet, there are. I mean, I have a channel, Beyond Doubt Theology. If you want to email me, or my email, beyonddoubttheology@gmail.com. I'll write it down here. I'll give you free references, like on like YouTube lectures by Christians or academia articles that you can download or whatever, and you can look at them at your own leisure. In fact, there is an excellent article. Give me 1 second. There's an excellent article by a Christian scholar. His name is Daniel Wallace. He teaches. We referenced him in the beginning, but he teaches New Testament textual criticism in Dallas Theological Seminary, very conservative seminary. And he wrote an article on his website called "Managing Oversights," and he gives example after example after example after example of the New Testament authors misquoting the Old Testament, misquoting the scriptures. And he goes through all of the usual evangelical arguments to try and fix them. And his conclusion is that these aren't smart ways, and you can just basically say that they made a mistake. And that early church fathers can see it.
For sure, if the Gospel of John is it's not reliable, for sure, no. Yeah, but my way of thinking is because for me all this scholarship work, for me it's like trying to psychoanalyze people that were like hundreds of years before you. So I just decided that the basic way for me to think is I would just trust the church that gave it. That's why I'm Catholic. So I prefer like to ease because all this research about like the interpretations of this stuff, all this stuff. So if in that community the four gospels were accepted and even in the church tradition that the one were taken to be the truth.
Yeah.
There's really another way to go to look for what Christ said. Like there's not really all you have is speculations at that point.
That's what I mentioned earlier. I mentioned that, and you basically admitted you're very smart, you're very rational. This is what I mentioned to Farid. I said, yeah, there really is not a way to secularly arrive at what Jesus said. The sources are too late. They're filled with contradictions. They're filled with changes and interpolations. There's no argument about that. And so what are you to do? Did God leave you to just like blindly follow somebody? Did God leave you to just like do your best because you can never have a peace of mind going to sleep thinking maybe a manuscript is going to be discovered tomorrow where John 1:1 is gone, or John chapter 18 that you mentioned earlier is gone too, or any of these, because it's happened before with multiple passages, very important passages, where we discover a text. Oh my God, the book Mark of the Beast is not 666; it might be 616. There's no millennial reign in Revelation. Jesus is not called, the only begotten God in John chapter 1:18, and so salvation should not be dependent upon things like that. So what I would posit is the Quran can be proven to be from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by means of its preservation, by means of its literary style, by means of its high eloquence, by means of its prophetical nature, by means of its complete honesty when it comes to things about the universe, and how it screams that it's from God. And so whatever it tells you about Jesus, and it's not very controversial things. He was a prophet. All the Gospels agree that he was a prophet. Okay, he was the Messiah. Everyone agrees that he was the Messiah. He was a righteous man. Everyone agrees that he was a righteous man. He was great to his mother. John doesn't agree, but most of the Gospels agree that he was good to his mother. He was blessed. Almost everyone agrees except Paul. Paul says he's a curse, that he became a curse, et cetera, et cetera. So those things that you can see about Jesus, in which those nuggets of truth, they're all preserved in the Quran.
So
and so he's not, and he wasn't even a universal prophet, by the way. He says, I was not, in your canonical text, I was not sent but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I was only sent to them. And so it's not even obligatory upon you to find his message. It's not for you. But you have a universal messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who claimed to come to the entire world. And so you don't need to know really Jesus' message if you find Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam promulgating it and completing it.
Looking into Islam, I think you will make the topic go to a way different thing.
Yeah.
What I want to say is that I get what you're saying, but that's why I said I prefer to rely on the church to authenticate the gospel, because Jesus preached in a community. That community suffered martyrdom just for his message. So
you only know that from later sources, though. You're not technically trusting the church. You're trusting the manuscripts that tell you about the church, which come from the same hand of the scribes that changed the New Testament.
No, like even like I think it's well attested that the church was under persecution and stuff. So I think that the best way to continue. So I think the best is to rely on that church that try to preserve the tradition as best as they can. Because jumping to Muhammad,
I don't
you're
think
telling me to take a 600 years leap is difficult. It's not easy.
I mean, when Moses came, was that a good justification for not accepting Abraham, because Moses came 1,000 years after Abraham?
But I think that's the thing though. They had their tradition. The Jews still had their traditions with them.
We don't know that. We don't know. That's just something you're positing. We have no idea what they had when they were in captivity in Egypt. There's no evidence that they knew who Abraham was.
The one that said like I'm the God of Jacob, Abraham, Isaac.
That's it. That's Moses. Moses is telling them that in the Torah.
Yeah, and they believed it. That means they knew who they were. I think that's like easy.
They believed him not because they can.
They know who Jacob, Isaac is.
Right. They believed him because they saw miracles, because they witnessed him, etc., not because they believed in an unbroken chain of Moses back to the creation of the universe.
I think like they knew about their patriarchs.
Abraham.
They knew about their patriarchs, like at the very least, I think.
Yeah.
That would be a stretch. They said that they knew nothing about them. So
yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. We can take this to so many different extents, but there's somebody like kind of complaining he wants to come up.
Okay, no problem.
But yeah, definitely.
The links that you have to show me, do you send it?
Yeah. Message me on my channel or my email. It's that@gmail.com, and I'll send you everything, inshallah.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, man.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, BR.
Okay.
Thanks, my friend.
We got Cyril the Great.
Assalam. Hello guys, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
وعليكم
Walaikum
السلام.
Why can't you say Assalamu alaikum? I don't understand that.
Guys, I just it took so long. How come?
We were talking with someone, bro.
No problem. So I actually wanted to just Farid ask you just one question.
But wait, why'd you stop yourself from saying salam?
No, because I was gonna troll a little bit, but
You don't have to. But you're Christian, right?
Yes.
So but isn't that how Jesus greeted the apostles in the upper room?
Sorry?
Isn't that how Jesus greeted his friends?
Yes, but for the average Muslim, he would be like,
Wait, you are Muslim then?
No. Alhamdulillah, I'm Christian, but
okay.
Is Farid coming back or no?
I think he was having some technical issues with his camera.
Actually, then I'll ask it to you if that's okay.
If it's intended for Farid, just give him a minute because he was glitching a little bit. Now his audio.
No, it's okay. You can answer this because it's just about Allah. So, actually, we can. Yeah, actually, we could talk about Allah. Actually, yeah.
Okay.
I've never heard you speak about his his attributes and stuff. Is that okay?
You've never heard me speak about it?
Yes.
How often have you heard me speak?
I used to hear you in like a clubhouse.
And I've never spoken about Allah, even when I was debating like atheists and Shia and all these people.
I don't think I was there. Whenever I heard you speak, you would just be talking about Bible. I do remember that you spoke to Brother Jai, and then you had to bring the Sheikh, and then the Sheikh was.
I didn't bring the Sheikh.
I think it was one of your friends, and then the Sheikh was
so
getting mad.
You have to be very, very if you know Jai, if you're from that same circle of Masakin, you have to be very careful of how you represent what happened. I didn't bring anyone. Jai was the one who was. Yeah.
Give your point of view of that discussion with Jai.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
of course
I don't want to distract. But yeah, what's your question about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Yes, no, I this is the basic like his attributes. Do you believe they're distinct from his essence?
I'm an Athari. I don't really talk about those things, to be honest. I believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. He has attributes that are manifested in the world, just like I'm a human being and I have attributes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
Wait. What do you mean they're manifested?
Listen, if you're from that same circle of people,
you
have to provide.
You just made a statement.
Cyril. You're a guest on a panel, so act like one. Okay, so this is not that type of format where it's wait, or you're cutting people off. I give you a chance to ask the question. You should allow more time for the response. Okay, so as an Athari, I don't يعني لا أخوض في أشياء ما خاضوا فيه الصحابة. You understand Arabic?
Let's keep it English for us.
Okay, so I don't delve into matters of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's essence that I don't have evidence for in Quran and Sunnah. Okay, so whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about his attributes, we accept it as it is, meaning he's loving, he's powerful, he creates, he is above his throne, he sees, he hears, he's the answer of the calls, etc.
What does that mean?
Before going into this topic, we can go into this topic, I don't mind, but Cyril, I hope we're going to talk about Jesus today because we've been on here for 2 hours now.
Farid, you are respectful. I've actually I know a lot of Christians don't really like you, but I have seen you talk and you are respectful. I will give you that. So no problem.
I appreciate it.
So is it okay if you answer?
Athari as well. I don't get into. I don't do anything apart from affirm what's in the Quran and Sunnah.
Oh, and okay, no problem. What about do you still believe? I think it was your recent video that you said that no classic of the ulamas believe. What was the? I forgot what was the question. I think it was that none of the
Torah and Injil are preserved.
Yes.
I'm not. Do you have an example of someone that does affirm that they are?
Have you not read anything of Albani or Bukhari? on it, or
Al-Albani or Bukhari? The gap between those two is incredible.
Please share, man. Please share.
I'm asking you, like, if that's just your position, do you still hold to that position? I'm just asking.
I made the claim. Do you have a response to it?
No problem. No. Then it's okay. Then my next
Wait.
question.
You said, have you not heard? So Al-Albani speaks about the corruption of the Injil and the Torah.
No. I was just saying, have you read any works upon it?
You mentioned Al-Albani and Bukhari, like specifically.
Yes.
Al-Albani has something like, I don't know, 40 volumes of works. I'm not sure which specific work you'd like me to take a look at, in which he's discussed.
No problem. I will try send you the link.
Like, have you not read the works of Al-Albani in the context of this particular subject? A person would be right to deduce that you think Al-Albani spoke about it, or are you just saying names randomly, like for no reason?
No. I was just asking if he read any works upon that certain subject by that scholar.
What have they written? What has Al-Albani written on the subject?
I'm not 100% sure. I just wanted to know if you know.
Bro, that's weird as hell. I'm not gonna lie. It's as if you were saying that Al-Albani has a contrary position, unless you need to learn how to.
You know what? Just let's skip over that.
Let's do
my
that.
only questions were gonna be about Allah, to be honest. But when you said you don't want to speak about it, then I don't really have too much topics.
Cyril, tell us about Jesus, bro. I got a nice thumbnail with me looking all enlightened, and there's a picture of a cross and a dove in the background. Least you can do is tell us about Jesus.
No, but I want to talk about more about Allah. I haven't got anything about Allah yet.
So not interested in telling us about Jesus?
No, I am, but you guys haven't spoken about Allah yet.
Okay, so we can tie it up. What does Jesus?
The name of the stream is "Teach Me About Jesus."
I can connect it.
Go ahead.
What does Jesus say about the distinction between the essences and the attributes?
Sorry?
What does Jesus say about the distinction between the essence and attributes?
But we wouldn't go to his words for that.
Wow.
We would go to the scholars.
So,
the
the scholars taught you more about God than Jesus?
Well, God is not going to write everything about himself in a book.
So why are you expecting it of us? If God didn't say it, you want us human beings
you can't even provide the basics. One question, and you're saying
for the same reason. You're saying your prophet, your Messiah, didn't say these things, but you're claiming to know things about God's essence from scholars without revelation, without a prophet. You're saying that these people are telling you about God's how he is, his ontology, based on non-revelation. Do you understand how problematic that is?
They have divine authority, the early church fathers, brother.
Okay, they have divine. Does Irenaeus have divine authority?
Alhamdulillah, you have to go to the scholars.
He's just trolling, Akhi. He's just trolling. This is not Clubhouse, bro. It's not Clubhouse. It's not TikTok. If you don't have anything actual academic to offer, then we kicked out BR. We kicked out BR for you, bro. That's horrible. Wallah, we should have him back.
We got folks claiming that you're a Sufi.
I'm a Sufi. No.
He said, Alhamdulillah, I'm a Christian, so he's definitely.
Yeah. I mean, Wissam couldn't answer one question, and he couldn't answer it about Allah.
Okay, if you say so, Cyril.
No,
all right, Cyril.
I'm being honest.
Sorry, bro. Catch you around next time.
Have a good one.
Okay.
I feel ashamed that we removed that guy.
Yeah, the guy was good, man. BR was interesting. It seemed like it was going somewhere. But we do have Moses. Hey, Moses.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
Bro. How you doing?
And Farid, I do have to go soon, inshallah. I'm sorry, but maybe you're gonna continue the stream.
We can have Moses as the last guest.
I'm sorry, because got many other things to take care.
That's fine.
I appreciate it. Were you intending the stream to go a certain length, or?
No, I actually hate the really long streams. They're too much for me.
What time is it where you are?
It's 11.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Moses. How you been, bro?
Okay, that's all right. When is your next stream?
I have no idea.
No, make use of this one though. Well, I'm not rushing you or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like.
Yeah, what's up, Moses?
It's all good. It's all good. Nice to finally speak with you.
Thanks for
So
joining.
the stream is about Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Where to start? I think there is a lot, you know. Basically, for me, I like to connect. My connection starts from the atonement, you know, the sacrifice, the relevance of the process of sin, the relevance of it all, and how it is fulfilled in the New Testament, and why it
And
necessarily had
if
to
you
be
don't
God.
mind, please speak up. Your voice is a bit low.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a lot
can
of
you hear me
bass.
now? Can you hear me better?
It is better.
All
I'm
right.
going to turn off the air conditioning.
Okay. So I was talking about Jesus. For me, I start from the Old Testament. You know, the institution ceremonial law of Moses, the sacrificial lamb, of how God forgave sins, and how that flows into the new covenant in the New Testament, where the sacrificial lamb ends 2,000 years ago, not only for Christians but also for the Jewish traditions. So, yeah, and necessarily it had to, on a theological basis, it has to be God who had to do all that. Because when you look at the temple, you know, there was part of it there. There was the, like, inside the Ark of the Covenant was the Ten Commandments, and in the holies of holies was the glory of God there, and all these things just claimed for himself in the New Testament. So it is the Old Testament acting like a shadow of the New Testament, if you know what I mean. Because when you talk about just saying things like "I'm the bread of life," most of all those statements, you'll find them linked to the atonement process. For example, and even bread was also he talks of himself as the bread, while also in the temple there was bread there. He talks of himself as the tree in the temple. There was the stick of Aaron outside that was like constantly budding. So all those things that are captured and encapsulated in Jesus. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
We know what typology is, brother. We know what typology is.
Yes, typology. Yes, so to say.
I just have a quick thought I'd like to share about this. Usually, when I'm interested in learning about a historical figure, I usually go to sources that are closest to that person's time. I don't usually go to texts that speak about them coming into existence, prophecies about them. Like if you asked me about Muhammad, peace be upon him, I wouldn't immediately go to Deuteronomy. I would say, check out like Ibn Ishaq or Musa bin Uqba or even Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. There's a lot of information about him over there. So I always find this. I mean, I think you're the second person today, second, maybe third, who's mentioned the Old Testament when asked about Jesus directly or specifically.
Okay. I mean, it's a transition, right? We believe in revelation being progressive, right? So we go to the basis of the Old Testament because that's where Christianity is claiming its foundation, isn't it?
What are your
if you want to, if we can skip all that, then there will be a lot of gaps that is missing in knowledge when it comes to the New Testament. Why is Jesus the way he is? Why he had to necessarily be God? Because we base it, the foundation is laid from the New Testament, then we progress to the New Covenant from the Old Testament, then we progress to the New Covenant in the New Testament. So if I tell you that, for example, Jesus is the way of life,
I get it. But do you
how
think
how does that typology align with the atonement?
Okay.
Because that's the point. He is the Lamb of God that comes to take away sins of the.
Am I muted or?
Sorry,
I can hear you.
Okay, so no problem. So do you think both? Do you think that the scriptures, the Old Testament, or the Tanakh, it's consistent with this new covenant?
Yes, absolutely. Not consistent because he said he's fulfilling. He's fulfilling the
Jews. Yeah, like for example.
Let me just maybe add one word. Okay. Because we believe those things were foreshadowing Jesus Christ.
Foreshadowing. I got it.
So not necessarily. I wouldn't like to use the word obligated. I would like to use the word the foreshadow word, as in they are now absorbed, so to say.
Are they consistent? I mean, I'm just saying, like, they're not contradictory, right?
They're not contradictory, no, because when for just one part, for example, when it comes to Paul talking about Jesus Christ as cursed, You know, this was the status of the scapegoat. The scapegoat became a curse for you.
Where does it say the scapegoat became a curse?
Because it carries the sins. That was the term. I don't know if you want to go.
That it's a curse. Something blessed can carry your sins for you. You're not actually like intrinsically loading up that thing. Like if I'm carrying firewood, I don't become firewood. Okay.
If you are carrying firewood, you don't become
I don't
firewood.
become fire. Exactly. So that doesn't mean.
But Jesus Christ in his fleshly state
was hold on. Like, okay, I mean, but that's a side issue. I just want to like pick your brain on the whole consistency thing. So
okay, yes.
One of the major, and you use syllogisms, correct? It's not something explicit.
Point 1.2, yes, go on.
Yeah, you spoke about typology, and then you use syllogism saying Jesus is the bread of life, and therefore he is the bread, like the bread in the temple or whatever. He is the tree, and then etc. Right?
Yeah. Yes, go on.
So there were early Christians, people like Theodotus of Byzantium, Belarius of Bostra, Theodotus the Fuller, Paul of Samosata, etc., who use the same type of reasoning. I'm curious. To see, I'm curious to see, because I do have to. My wife is giving me the stare of death. I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see how you would. Do you accept these syllogisms too? So in the Torah, in the Tanakh, both in Numbers and in the Minor Prophets, God says, or Yahuwah says, I am not a man. Okay. Jesus says, I am a man. Okay. Why do you not accept that syllogism to say, then if God is a man, and if God is not a man, and Jesus is a man, then therefore Jesus is not God? Or for example, God detests human sacrifices. Jesus is a human sacrifice. Therefore, God would detest
animals. Yes, the blood and animals don't please me. But I have prepared a temple for me that will please me. Like the verse that you're talking about says, there is a full context. For example, when it said God is not a man, the rest of the verse says that he should lie.
No, that's in Numbers. That's in Numbers. I'm talking
God
about.
God is not a man that he should lie.
That's the passage in Numbers.
That's the full verse.
No. Okay. See, Muslims, we don't take things out of context. Alhamdulillah. I've mentioned.
I think as Christians too.
Yeah, I'll beg to differ. And
what's the verse number? What's the verse number? What's the verse?
So I can give you the verse that I was speaking about. Although in Numbers is explicit too. If I said, I am not a fish that I have gills, then somebody comes and says, oh, you must be a fish in other ways. That would be
Numbers 22 verse 19.
That would be so dumb. Like God is saying that he's not a man, and he lists the quality of a man. That doesn't mean that he has other qualities of man. But the verse that I was speaking about is
that's Numbers 23 verse 19. Let me read it. It says, God is not a man.
Yeah, that he should lie, nor the son of man that he should change his mind. I know the passage. I'm saying
not a human being that he should change his mind.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that he is a man in other ways. Like I said,
what's the verse, Yafi? What's the number that you have?
Hosea 11:9.
Numbers 22 verse 19.
The verse that I was speaking about is very explicit. Hosea 11:9.
Okay. I'm bringing it up. Give me a sec.
Is Hosea 11 verse 9? Because it says, I will not carry out my fierce anger, no, I will devastate Ephraim again. For I am God and not a man. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's one of verse that we can take like that. But you see, in the Old Testament, there are many instances when prophets met, for example, starting with Abraham, for example. Abraham went out of the house and met 3 men, and among them, it is said that God was among them. So it has been known in many instances where the holy man of God has interacted with, we would say sometimes it's referred to as the angel of the Lord. Or God himself in the man. For example, when Jacob, when he wrestled with God?
Moses, please go. Moses, one by one. Moses, please let's do this one by one. Let's not go from verse to verse. It's very interesting. I don't know if with some of you dealt with this one before, and I haven't seen this one dealt with. So I'd like to go through this one by one, Moses, if you don't mind.
Okay. All right.
You said Genesis. Where in Genesis is it?
When what?
Genesis, you're talking about the angel of the Lord that came to Abraham?
Yes, that's Genesis 19. The whole story when God was going to Sodom and Gomorrah.
All right,
To
give me a
judge
second.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
I'm
He first
digging it
passed
up.
by.
I'm digging it
He
up.
first
Give me a
passed by his servant Abraham. And Abraham, it is written of him that he saw 3 men.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a way to reconcile these things. Okay, God is not a man. When he incarnates and he walks among us, we can say he's a man, but his spirit is his true nature. It's referring to his nature. God is spirit fundamentally, but when he interacts with human beings, he does tend to interact in our bodily form as human beings. For example, I know it's different. We are interpreting it in the lens of the Quran that God does not.
Not really. No, you don't say that.
In the lens of the religion, because for example, throughout the Old Testament, there are many instances when God has interacted with human beings. For example, with
it's
Moses.
quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite, Moses.
For example, with Moses.
Hold on, Moses. Moses, hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm telling you, it's not the case that we're interpreting it as Muslims. It's the case that you're interpreting it as a Trinitarian. Because prior to Trinitarians, they did not see it this way. Jews still don't see it that way. So it's not like this idiosyncratic Quranic view that the angel of the Lord is not God. It's a plain reading of the text, and it's the way Jews have understood it, or at least Jews with rabbinic traditions. So for you to say we're reading it because how the Quran reads it is completely inaccurate. In fact, you're the ones who are idiosyncratic.
So where is this? I'm looking at Genesis 19. Moses,
you can start from 18. You can start from verse 18. Yeah, start from chapter 18.
Oh, chapter 18. Okay.
And this is the Sodom.
Okay, I'm on 18. The Lord appeared to Abraham.
Start from 18.
Is this it? The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent.
Yes, verse 2.
Yeah. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord. Do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed and then go on your way. Now that you have come to your servant. Very well, they answered, do as you say. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. Quick, he said, get 3 sias, the finest flour, and knead it, and bake some bread. Then he ran to the
Hebrew equivalent to sa'.
MashaAllah, wallahi fa'ida jamila. Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice, tender calf and gave it to a servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. Where's your wife Sarah? They asked him. There in the tent, he said. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah, who was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? Then the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yes, you did laugh. When the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him, for I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin is so grievous that I will go down and see if they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. The men turned away and went towards Sodom, and Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again, he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Man, this is a lengthy chapter.
Yes, but the point was not that you read the whole thing, though I've enjoyed your reading.
Almost done. Abraham said, it's enjoyable. Abraham said, now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. Please don't tell me read 19.
No, but anyway, those two angel-looked men went to Sodom, and they're the ones who rescued Lot. It goes into the story of Lot because Abraham and Lot, I think, they're like cousins.
Yeah.
But there are many instances like this in the Bible when God has appeared as a man. We're not saying the way to reconcile this. We do not say that God is in essence is a man. We say that God does interact in certain ways through creation.
Yeah, okay. through agency then.
So through agencies. It does interact through agencies.
So it's not God.
No, it is God. Because there is no way you for example.
God is the agent.
Let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. When God appeared to Moses through the burning bush, God declared the ground where Moses was stepping with his sandals. He said, Moses, take off your sandals because where you're stepping is holy ground. Why is anything, if anything can be declared holy, it must be the presence of God in it.
Yeah, we take off our shoes when we go in the masjid, bro.
No, but in this case, God declared it to Moses.
Yeah, that's holy ground, meaning it's sacred ground.
Sacred ground where Moses steps because he was in the presence of God himself when Moses
God's essence was on the ground?
Okay. May I, let me give you an example.
So, let's go back to Abraham.
If I can ask you, Moses interacting with
Moses, please, let's go back to this. Let's go back to Abraham because it's really interesting. I don't want the discussion to shift to something else.
Okay.
Because I've heard this argument before, and I've never seen like the proper. I'd love to be involved in a discussion about this. So you're saying that the angel here is God Himself coming in the form of an angel, or coming in the form of a human? Or what exactly?
Well, as you read it, the Bible said that, as you read it, Abraham saw 3 men.
Yeah. Okay, so
these I don't know how it was revealed to him to realize that among those men is God. Okay, one of those who appeared to him.
So Moses, the thing is, the reason why I'm assuming that this is referring to God is because one, you have God not knowing how many believers are in Sodom and Gomorrah, like. Mm-hmm. You'd assume God would know how many people are upon like the faith of Lot, right?
I don't know.
Or are you saying God did not know how many people were there truly?
He did know how many people were there. I think the purpose of this was to interact with Abraham. We can ascribe a purpose to it, but the thing is, God is the same one who's telling Sarah before she's pregnant and she's old that she will have a child next year. So there is some certain. There is a certain aspect of knowing even the future in completeness. because it talks about Sarah exactly knowing the time she's going to conceive sometime next year, and she was old, and Sarah laughing in the other room, but God knowing that she's laughing in the other without being in the presence. So there are all those attributes. Now, this might serve as an interaction just for God to reveal something to his servant.
Okay, so
As he said, shall I hide what?
If we stick with the plain reading, Moses, you have to admit that it does seem like he doesn't know. Instead of, I understand your point. You're saying that he's just doing it to interact with Abraham. He's doing it to...
Yes, because he said it, that shall I hide what I'm about to do to Abraham? Okay, and then Abraham proceeds to interact with God to become like a mediator for the
the Lord says it says then the Lord. Okay, let me just show it. Let me just share the screen. It says then the Lord said. By the way, Moses, I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate you. Thanks for just like bringing this stuff up. I've never taken a close look at this. Then the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation. All the nations on earth will be blessed through him." So this discussion, him saying, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do?" He's consulting the angels here, right? Or he's consulting the two other men, right?
Oh, this. I don't know if because I think he was at the same time speaking to Abraham. Just the way of starting the conversation with him.
He's saying to Abraham, "Shall I hide from Abraham?"
Yeah, shall I hide from Abraham? He said to himself, or he said it out loud. It could be rhetorical. I don't know the context of this. But the thing is that my point was here is that Abraham saw three men, didn't he?
Yeah.
You can analyze it in many different ways.
Yeah, so I agree.
Yeah, when you read like 22, it says the men turned away and went towards Sodom. We in 18 in the following chapter we realize that these two men who went to Sodom are angels actually.
Yes.
And they met Lot at the gate and they recognized them. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's because he was also a righteous man.
Can I just like cut to the chase? Okay, like
you cut.
Yeah. So later on, when they go to Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Those are two angels. You just said they're two angels, right?
Yes.
Okay. And they said to Lot, "We are going to destroy this city," correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the angels are going to destroy the city, and then later on, who destroys the city?
God.
Yahweh
destroys the city.
Okay.
Yahweh.
Okay. So Yahweh destroyed the city via mediation of the angels.
After they remove Lot and his two daughters out of Sodom.
We know that. We know that. Yes.
What happened? Yahweh on earth made it rain.
It's not Yahweh, by the way. It's Yahuwah. There's no Yah in the Tetragrammaton.
No, that's the word that is used. Like.
Yeah, but it's just it's very. I always find it so funny. Like Christians, they mispronounce even the mispronunciation. It's a tetragrammaton.
Okay. So, obviously nobody knows how to pronounce it properly, but that's besides the point.
It's not about
the Bible says that.
Hold on. It's not about nobody knowing how to pronounce it. This is a side point. It's nobody would ever pronounce it Yahweh because there's no long Yah vowel. There's not. It's just Yod He Vav He. So it would be quick vowels, Niqud. So it'd be Yahuwah. There's no A. Nobody would ever pronounce it like that.
Okay. The only fine. I would concede to that. I don't think it's besides what we are talking about. The relevance of it.
Important.
But I appreciate the lesson.
Say the name of your God. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate the lesson, but I don't think it is relevant to the.
Not relevant to mispronounce God's name. Go ahead.
It isn't relevant, but it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in its context, because I think the point at hand.
Please carry on.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I was saying, it is said. I think this is another verse that is used about the Trinity, because the context is used in chapter 19. In the following chapter, it says that Yahweh on earth, or God, or the Lord on earth. Let's use that. The Lord on earth made fire and brimstone rain from the Lord in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So the use of this, it didn't say that it is just one person.
But you just said it was the angels.
No, there are two angels that are distinct that are in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yes.
Those are identified. Then the Lord remained behind, chatting with
but
Abraham.
the angels told Lot that they were going to destroy the city.
Yes. No, they didn't.
No?
The one who was talking to angels.
The angels didn't say that we are going to destroy the city? Think very hard about that.
The angels, there are two angels that went forward and God remained behind. That's what it says.
I know that. Did the angels that go to Sodom and Gomorrah, look, bro, like I have to leave, so please make
Yes, they told Lot that they're going to destroy the city. That's why they were getting him out.
So you just contradicted what you said 5 seconds ago. That
No. If I did, I apologize. I must have misspoke. I don't think it's...
No problem. So they said that they were going to destroy the city, the angels, right?
Yes.
And then it says, yeah.
God, not the angels are going to destroy the city. God is going to destroy the city.
They said we are going to destroy the city. Now you're contradicting yourself again.
Bro, I think we can just bring it up. We don't have to contradict ourselves about this.
Are you saying that they said it or no?
What?
Are you saying
who destroys the city? Who destroys the city, man? It's God.
That's my next question. I'm saying before God destroys the city, the angels explicitly said we are going to destroy the city.
Not we. They must have said God. I don't know.
So you're going back on what you just conceded.
Okay, let me make it clear. God was going to destroy the city. In whichever context the angels told.
I know that. I know. Did the angel? This is very important to my argument. Just say you don't know, and we'll bring up the passage. Did the angels say that we are?
The passage, because I don't think it's relevant to.
So finish just bring it up.
Here's the passage. The passage says, the two men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we're going to destroy this place."
Okay, so they said we are going to destroy this place.
Yes.
Awesome. The angel said that. Okay, so now it's clear, right?
Yes, it's clear.
It's clear.
What is your point?
And Moses, let me make my point, bro. At the end, who destroys the city?
God.
Okay, so God destroys the city through the men, through the angels.
God destroys the city through the angels.
Excellent. So, and God is speaking to Abraham through the angel.
No.
Why doesn't that work? Why doesn't that work?
God did not destroy the city through the angels because God made it rain.
You just said it 2 seconds ago, bro.
Think about it. Think about Moses. What happened? What happened? What do you think happened?
Okay, let me put it up myself. I think.
Bro, you're killing me here. You say one thing and then 2 seconds later you say something else.
Okay. I don't get what you're getting at, because the one who destroys the city is God. Okay.
Yep.
Period.
So
Angels are carrying the message of God.
Okay. So the angels did not destroy the city.
The angels did not destroy the city. God destroys the city, because it says it clearly, man. It says it clearly in the next chapter, in chapter 19.
Okay. So
right?
God. So Wissam, update at the moment. Moses is saying that the angels did not destroy the city.
The angels, so they lied. Okay. Thank you, Moses.
There is a way you can say that angels destroy the city, but not directly.
Agency.
Okay, not directly.
That's what agency is.
Yes, agency.
And so agency would be applied to Abraham as well. He's speaking to the Lord via the angel.
No, but it cannot. Because it is clear that it is
Moses,
God.
I would love to have this conversation further, but
read the following chapter, man. Read the same chapter.
I've read the whole text in multiple languages.
It says that Yahweh rained fire and brimstone from Yahweh. There is a distinct explanation, man.
That's fine. Go to Safaria, look up that passage, and I would encourage you to learn what a Hebrew parallelism is. They'll give you many passages about.
I don't think it's relevant to go to the Hebrew parallelism. It's very clear here that Yahweh made it rain from Yahweh.
It's not relevant to know what the original language might have intended with that construct.
No, I don't play those kind of stuff. I think the translation is enough. I don't need to go learn Hebrews like the way you do. Awesome. I don't need to learn that.
Okay.
I think the translation is sufficient. When I compare multiple translations, I am sufficient with that.
Okay.
If one will miss something, I can get the meaning from the other person.
All right, Moses. Anything else, bro?
Well,
because we're about to bounce. We're about to end this.
Yes, I get it. All right, so maybe next time we can catch up and
discuss this.
Next time, definitely, Moses, come back. This was beneficial.
Yes, there are many multiple verses I would like to run by you that talks about
Please.
God,
Yeah.
walking and talking to men.
Next time, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure, man. Nice to meet you. I mean, I had a wrong impression about you, but that has changed about you, Farid. I think.
Oh, thank you, bro. I appreciate it, Moses.
Yes, that has been nice. I mean, I didn't expect this. I thought you are. I mean, of course, when you watch too much YouTube, I thought you were something else. But I have enjoyed our conversation.
That's just I just seem to be nice when, like, placed next to Wissam.
Actually, I don't know how anyone could watch your content and get any different impression than you being like a civil gentleman, bro. That's
all right. So I've enjoyed our conversation. Honestly,
thanks, bro.
Nice to meet you, Wissam and Farid.
You too.
Wissam. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name.
Oh, perfect, actually.
Wissam or Wissam?
Yep. You pronounce my name better than Yahweh.
Have a good night.
I'll leave you with
all
that.
Right, cheers, man.
I'll leave you with that jab. I'm sorry.
Cool.
All right, Wissam, bro, we got 2 people on the back. Can we do 1 minute per person? Just because I feel bad for leaving them on for this long. Just a minute per person.
Okay, a minute per person. Yeah.
All right. Folks, please, if you turn on your cameras just for a second, that's the common protocol. Ya Sa'di and Ya Masihi Muslim, if you guys don't mind. All right.
Not Masihi Muslim, no.
Not Masihi Muslim? Okay, I'm sorry, Masihi.
مرفوع القلم 100% مرفوع منصوب ومجرور يا أخي.
I'm sorry, Masihi Muslim. Wissam doesn't want you on, unfortunately. I got to cater to Wissam.
Everyone, look, just check the chat. He's on Ramsey's stream a lot. He's very weird. Very weird.
I'm sorry, bro. I do apologize. And Saadi, if you want to turn on the camera for a second. Just 1 second. All right, maybe not. Habibi Wissam, it was great having you. I appreciate it. It was 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Was it?
This time, alhamdulillah, bro, this time was really good. We got some folks on.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, we actually got some knowledge out there. And Jack Bull showed up.
Alhamdulillah.
Dr. Jack Bull.
And it's unfortunate because I didn't really learn much about Jesus.
Yeah. You learned a lot about the Old Testament, though. Daniel and Genesis.
I did learn about a bunch of things, but it's not what I was looking for.
I think people do well to like rewatch it, inshallah, because it's a lot of information about logos theory. We mentioned some things about Marcion. It's very important about early church history, so very beneficial.
Wissam, why do you think no one wanted to speak about Jesus much?
Well, I don't know. I think it's because they've kind of like recycled those arguments a lot, and they know what would happen. To be honest,
I think the average person on the street would tell me about some parables, some of the nice things that Jesus did, some of the miracles, or something like that. Not necessarily arguments. We didn't even get much of that, unfortunately. But hopefully next time. Seems like Wissam has bounced a bit earlier than I thought. Here he is. Play it, bro. It was good. Jazakallah khairan. Thanks for joining me. Any last words?
No, make dua for Jake. Thank you guys, everybody, for showing up. I wish I could have spent more time. Make dua for me too, because I'll probably dead after today. Yeah, I gotta go.
May Allah give you strength, bro.
I mean, I love you, bro. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for having me here. Inshallah, we do this again.
Thanks for doing all the heavy lifting. I'll catch you guys next time. We'll catch you guys next time. Of course, subscribe to Beyond Doubt Theology, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.